Welcome back to Rewind of the Living Dead. I'm Damon Driftwood.
And I'm Patrick Firefly.
And Patrick, today we are going to be reviewing on the 20th anniversary of what I have called my favorite horror film of all time. So I'm not burying the lead here talking about our review. We tonight are reviewing Rob Zombie's seminal sequel that he doesn't like being called a sequel, The Devil's Rejects.
Yes, Damon, The Devil's Rejects, released in July of 2005, starring the likes of, and there's a lot of casts, so forgive me if I don't list them here because we're going to talk about pretty much everybody anyway, but the likes of Ken Foray as Charlie Altamont, Will Forsythe as Sheriff Wydell, Sherry Moon Zombie as Baby, Bill Moseley as Otis, and Sid Haig as Captain Spaulding, as you mentioned, Damon, written and directed by Rob Zombie, with a budget of only $7 million, a proper low-budget horror film, and only grossed $20 million worldwide. But Damon, this is a bona fide cult classic, and it is easily one of my top 5 horror films of all time, without a doubt. The Devil's Rejects.
It's funny. I'm always curious what people's relationship what people's relationship is with Rob Zombie as a filmmaker. Because I think if you're a heavy metal fan or you're a rock fan in general, you probably like Rob Zombie as an artist, as a musician. I grew up loving White Zombie, and then when he went solo, of course, like everybody else, and Dracula became a huge hit, I've always been a Rob Zombie fan. But when he crossed over and did filmmaking, I'm always curious because I think it's a very hit and miss process when you try to put musicians becoming actors or directors or whatever. And it's always funny because every actor wants to be a musician and every musician wants to be an actor or some sort of movie star. No, I won't say every, but the vast majority. You see it a lot. And so you're kind of like, I don't know. And here's what's funny about this. I remember seeing, and I'm sure this is after House of a Thousand Corpses was released, but I remember seeing back in the day an episode of Cribs. Remember Cribs, the MTV show where they went to like celebrities' houses?
Cribs.
Okay. They went to Rob Zombie's house. Now, first off, I want to live in Rob Zombie's house because he literally, it's just like it's like a gothic horror paradise. But he has this room. He has a screening room, and then in the screening room, he has like this almost like secret closet, which is like one of those pull-out bookcases, if I remember correctly. And you open it up, and it's just this giant vault of physical media, VHS and 35 millimeter prints, and at that time DVDs. And he just had a massive collection, and he is a huge physical media collector. But he talked about all the horror films he loved, and I remember watching that, and I think this was probably within 2 or 3 years of this movie coming out. And it didn't convince me because I already liked The Devil's Rejects, but I was like, wow, this guy really gets it. Like, he's a huge, true blue horror fan. But I do know fans of or people who watch his films are usually kind of cut into two halves. One part loves it and thinks he's a brilliant visionary. The other people are like, he makes shit. And I'm not going to say there's no in between, but it seems like there's very little in between when it comes to Rob Zombie because of all his films. I think The Devil's Rejects is the most universally beloved, but Halloween kind of had a very mixed reaction. I think even House of a Thousand Corpses had a mixed reaction.
Oh yeah,
Three from Hell had a mixed reaction. Lords of Salem had so like every one of his films is very hit or miss with fans, but if you're a hardcore fan of Rob Zombie, you probably love it. But I'm curious, like, what do you remember about your earliest relationship with Rob Zombie as a filmmaker?
It was hit or miss for me too. And this is interesting because yes, this is a sequel, but we didn't talk about the original first. We didn't even bother with the original first because they are, in my opinion, two very different things. They just share characters. I remember being very excited to see House of a Thousand Corpses because I just grew up on MTV and Rob Zombie was always on there and his videos were always weird and trippy and he had this kind of psychobilly style. So I was like, well, what could that look like as a movie? And I remember being very like struck by how odd House of a Thousand Corpses was. I appreciate it more now, but at the time when I had kind of less of a language for movie making, I was like, this is just weird. It's like half a Rob Zombie movie or a Rob Zombie music video, and I don't quite get it. And so I remember leaving the theater going, that was okay. It was pretty weird. Okay. I didn't know what to think of it. And then The Devil's Rejects is the follow up, and I think Damon, I don't even know where to start in terms of like how I felt about that movie. I was just blown completely over. And that's when I started to learn about who Rob Zombie, the filmmaker, was. And that's when I really began to respect what he's all about. And it's and partly what you're talking about with like his obviously his huge love of horror, which is kind of unmatched. I go, oh, you love horror? I guarantee Rob Zombie loves it more. Of course, that pisses people off. They hate hearing that, but it's probably true. What I learned with him making The Devil's Rejects was right around the time where I learned what I loved about cinema. And what that was I really truly loved the films of the 1970s. Now, I wasn't born in the 1970s, I was born in the 80s. And but I have this whole family that kind of comes from the 1970s. I got older siblings and my parents are older, and so the 1970s was kind of like our lives, and it was just projected onto me as this kid in the 80s. And so all the films of the 1970s for me were just like the coolest, and they were hardcore, and they were gritty, and they were blood soaked, and they were hypersexual, and there was all this shit that was going on in 1970s films that was sort of going away in the 1980s. And even your favorite Quentin Tarantino says it. He goes, he hates the 80s. It's all like it's too clean, it's too fashion forward and all that stuff. He goes that he likes the grit and the nastiness of the 60s and the 70s. I do rock with that idea. And I think Rob Zombie absolutely did that too. And I think when he made The Devil's Rejects, he was just like, yeah, I want to make those films. I want to make a 70s film because that's the shit I love. He grew up in New York and went to the cinemas in Times Square where he'd see guys getting into fist fights and getting stabbed and shit like that. It was like it was a wild time. The 70s were a very wild time in America, and they produced a lot of very interesting, very like unforgettable, indelible films. I think of, everyone thinks of Taxi Driver or Deliverance, but I think of like Network and Dog Day Afternoon and movies like that that are just so raw and heavy. And he was like, I'm making that. I want to make that. And so the fact that he followed up House of a Thousand Corpses with Devil's Rejects made me a Rob Zombie fan. And I'll be honest, I don't love everything he made after Devil's Rejects. In fact, I really hate Three from Hell, which is what he made as the third in this series. I really don't like that movie. I really love the Rob Zombie Halloweens. I've decided they're my favorite Halloween movies just based on all of my relationship with all the Halloween movies. He's a hit or miss director for me, but when he hits, boy, it's something to behold.
Yeah, I mean, for me, Rob Zombie hits more than he misses. I had a similar relation with House with Thousand Corpses, so I went and saw it. I do remember seeing it in the theater, and I liked it, but it was also like had a really weird like acid trip ending that I just didn't really jive with when the Dr. Satan stuff started, and then the very ending when the cops show up. Okay, I got that. But it was just a very odd film, and I did appreciate it because, like, they kill Chris Hardwick in that movie, and I can't stand Chris Hardwick, so I was like, "Cool, that's you got me, Rob Zombie." But when I don't now see, I don't remember when I saw The Devil's Rejects for the first time because I know I didn't see it in the theater, but I do remember seeing
Oh
it.
wow, you didn't see
Yeah, I
it in the
never,
theater.
never saw it in the theater. I will be seeing it in October. They're re-releasing it in the theaters for a couple nights, and I'm going to go see it in the theater. But I never got to see it in the theater, and when I saw this, I remember seeing it on DVD or whatever when it came out. And at that point, like I was a horror fan again, but I wasn't an obsessive horror fan. I was kind of moved on. So I was just watching movies to watch movies because I like movies. And I remember we're sitting down and watching this, and I was like, I wonder what he's going to do with this second film. And I had watched House of a Thousand Corpses again, and then when the characters started showing up in this new one, I was immediately like, this is something totally different. Like this is not House of a Thousand Corpses Part 2, which is a huge part for Rob Zombie. If you hear Rob Zombie read interviews with Rob Zombie from that time period, he says it over and over and over again. He doesn't like sequels, and he doesn't like the idea of sequels. He's like that you can kind of hold a handful that are great, like Godfather 2 and a couple of Empire Strikes Back. But he's like, he never wanted to make a franchise. He never wanted to make House of a Thousand Corpses 2 and House of a Thousand Corpses 3. So when he made The Devil's Rejects, his entire purpose was taking the characters from that movie, but then completely changing the tone and the style and everything else about the movie, which is like even the characters like Otis, played by the great Bill Moseley. In the original, he's like this weird albino, like he has him all painted in white, and he's like they tried it with the original screen test of this, and he said, yeah, it just didn't work, and so they just did away with it. Gave Bill Moseley a very grimy, the beard, and he kind of looks like a backwoods hillbilly, and made him look like that, and then even Captain Spaulding, which in the original, Captain Spaulding is just the guy at the gas station who interacts with the kids and then sends them off to find Dr. Satan, and they end up at the Firefly house where they are all tortured, and killed. Sorry, I'm spoiling House of a Thousand Corpses. But even then, he didn't have the idea that Captain Spaulding was actually in cahoots necessarily with the Fireflies. And he said when he came up with the sequel, that's where we learned that Captain Spaulding is Baby's father, and he's been with his family. He's part of the family. So that was all part of the machine of building Devil's Rejects. And he said even Captain Spaulding with the iconic clown makeup, which is so well known how we all see and view Captain Spaulding, he wanted to get him out of that makeup as quickly as possible. So you see him in the opening, you see him when he finds out that there was a raid on the house, you see him in that interaction when he steals the car, but then as soon as he gets to the Kiki Palms Motel and reunites with Baby and Otis, he washes it off and he never puts it back on for the rest of the movie, because Rob Zombie said he didn't want this to have anything really the feel of House of a Thousand Corpses, and Captain Spaulding in that makeup will make you think automatically of House of a Thousand Corpses. So he made a sequel that's not really a sequel, and while knowing the characters from House of a Thousand Corpses and understanding what this creepy, nasty, dirty, murderous family the Fireflies are known for, that is crucial information. But ultimately, if you just watch the opening scene where the cops raid this compound and you see Bill Moseley sleeping with a dead woman, and you see one of the family members who is tiny dragging a dead naked woman through the woods, and you see like the state of disrepair of this house, it doesn't take a genius to figure out these are bad people. So while this is technically a sequel and is a continuation of House of a Thousand Corpses, I think that you really need to see that one to understand this movie, because it feels so different. And last thing I'll say about this in terms of influences, it's funny because I read 5 or 6 or 7 interviews of Rob Zombie from that time period, like of that 2005 time period when he talked about Devil's Rejects, and I couldn't find the references to Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but I know years later he talked about that, and he said that Texas Chainsaw Massacre, if I'm not mistaken, I don't want to misquote Rob Zombie, I believe he said that's his favorite film of all time, and this was in a way an homage to that. Now, back in 2005, he didn't reference that. I mentioned in the intro, he talked about Bonnie and Clyde, he talked about Once Upon a Time in America, Once Upon a Time in the West. He referenced like action and dramas. He wasn't just trying to make a straight up horror movie. But years later, he kind of confesses like this is almost like a love letter to Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And how can you not see that in this movie?
Oh, it's so all over the DNA of this movie. And by the way, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, my number 2 favorite film of all time, not just a horror film, but film. And it's fluctuated between that and Alien. Sometimes it would take over Alien as the number 1. So boy, do I get that reference. And you're so right, Damon. You don't need to see House of a Thousand Corpses to enjoy The Devil's Rejects. And I have my own anecdote to prove that. So I saw House of Devil's Rejects in the theater. I think I went with my brother. Shout out to Schwink. And he was genuinely horrified at what he was watching on screen. And I was just like, holy shit, like this is exactly the movie I've been looking for my whole life. I've been chasing the high of Texas Chainsaw and Alien for so long, and here it is on screen. So I watch it and I'm just like, and I can't remember if my wife was with us or not. I don't remember. But I do remember going, I have to see this again. It's so incredibly good. And it just so happened that my wife's father was in town. And I said, hey, there's this movie, and it's totally 1970s. And he came of age in the 1970s. He was like a teenager, almost 20 or so in the 1970s. I go, I think you might dig it. Let's go. Big risk, by the way, being the either, I can't remember if I was the fiance or the young son-in-law or just the boyfriend at the time, but just going, I want to take you to go see The Devil's Rejects, potential new dad-in-law. And he's like, yeah, let's go. He's a guy from Idaho. He's kind of a mellow guy. We sit down, we watch this movie in all its glorious brutality and horror and just terrible violence and language and sexuality and all this shit. And he was sitting next to me the entire time. And then the credits start rolling, and I look over at him, and he looks over at me with his accent, and he goes, "I think that's the best movie I've ever seen." And I was like, "There you fucking go!" Like and he's a guy. He didn't watch horror movies growing up. He didn't really like them. That wasn't really something he was into. But you can't deny what you saw there. He wasn't lost. He didn't. He was like, I don't understand. She's this one. And he understood the idea that Sheriff Wydell was after the people who killed his brother. He didn't need House of a Thousand Corpses to help him understand that at all. It was all here in this movie. It was self-contained, and it just told the story of these outlaws, these psychopathic outlaws who were out for blood, and this cop who wanted to get revenge on his brother, but who was also falling off the ledge at the same time. It's just a compelling ass story. And Damon, dare I say, it's 100% Rob Zombie's full blown masterpiece. Every director has their masterpiece. Ridley Scott, it's Alien. Martin Scorsese, it's probably Goodfellas. Uh, Rob Zombie, it's The Devil's Rejects, Damon.
It's funny because as I said earlier, I enjoy far more of Rob Zombie's films than I don't. I mean, I think 31 is an underrated classic. Like, I think that is Rob Zombie's second best film. And I don't want to necessarily rate films, but I think that is such a really gritty, nasty masterpiece. I love that movie. And I think a lot of people have come around on his Halloween remake. I think at the time it was that you can't touch it. It's a classic, the very non-Patrick way of thinking. And and it feels like almost 20 years later, people have come around and say, you know what, that's actually a pretty damn good movie, and we really appreciate it, especially when you watch the god-awful David Gordon Green sequel and sequel and third film in the Halloween series. So I feel like people have come around and kind of learned to appreciate Rob Zombie as a filmmaker. But if there's one universally beloved film on his filmography, it is The Devil's Rejects. And it's real. I think the only real criticism, and I give everyone, I give everyone their opportunity to speak their mind when it comes to why they do or don't like films. No one's universal. I mean, Oppenheimer was the most universally praised movie the year it came out. You and I saw it in the theater together, and we loved it. But I know there's people out there who say, oh, it's too long, it's boring, whatever. So there's never going to be a universal feeling about any movie. But I would wager to say The Devil's Rejects is the most universally beloved of all of Rob Zombie's films because it combines everything perfectly into one movie. It is the gritty and the grimy that Rob Zombie loves to display in his films. I could never imagine Rob Zombie making a slick, like, New York set film. Like, he grew up in New York, but he grew up in the era of, like, you walk down Times Square and you better watch your back. You're probably getting stabbed and mugged. Not today's Times Square you walk through and it's like a tourist attraction. But I can't see him ever setting a movie in, like, a modern big city. That's just not Rob Zombie.
Yeah.
This movie has the perfect setting. It's 1978 is the time period, and it's naturally set in a very gritty, grimy part of Texas. It feels lived in and sweaty and just gross and just grimy. And then the characters, when you look at the casting and the characters in this movie, it is pitch perfect. Like, I can't imagine, and I'm not even talking about the House of a Thousand Corpses cast. I think Sid Haig as Captain Spaulding was perfect, and bringing him back for this was perfect. And same with Bill Moseley, and same with even Sherry Zombie, his wife, who plays Baby. But then you look at the new cast members, bringing in Ken Foray to play Charlie, bringing in PJ Souls for a very brief one-day role as a mom at her car when she gets accosted by Captain Spaulding, bringing in Michael Berryman, a classic from the Wes Craven universe, Hills Have Eyes. He just has a way, and so the casting was great. And then the script. The dialogue. I mean, this is the tightest written script that Rob Zombie's ever produced. And I'm saying that as a guy I'm openly sitting here saying I love 31, I love Halloween, I love a lot of his other stuff. But I think this script, Like this is one of those scripts when you get done reading or watching the movie and you're just like, yeah, don't change a thing. Don't touch
Yeah.
a word of dialogue. And there's very rare examples where I would say that in what is ultimately a pretty dialogue heavy movie. Like this is a dialogue
Yeah.
heavy movie. And I think when you get into a dialogue heavy movie, you can be like, maybe you should have taken that out, or maybe you could critique this. There's nothing I would change. This movie is written perfectly, it's directed perfectly, it's acted perfectly, and it's just a rare feat to see a movie done this well. And while you mentioned the budget only being $7 million, I mean that was a pleasure for Rob Zombie though, because like everything he went through, the freaking just torture he went through to get House of a Thousand Corpses made, and then it became a bit of a cult classic. And he said Lionsgate, who finally released House of a Thousand Corpses after Universal dumped it and basically said we're never releasing it, it's too violent, it's too gory, it's too batshit crazy, get the fuck out of here. Well, Lionsgate found it, and House of a Thousand Corpses became a cult classic. When he said, I want to do a second one, they're like, here, take the money, do your movie. And he actually said that he didn't have final cut, which means he has final say on what goes into theaters, but the studio said, you do what you want. They
Yeah.
gave him final cut. He didn't put that in his contract. He didn't have it like, I get to make the decision. Lionsgate, to their credit, said, do your thing, man. And this is what we get. And I'm not saying you leave Rob Zombie up to his own machinations. Occasionally you'll get the Munsters movie, which was not good. but when you get a movie like this and he has a vision and he has a way of making it's brilliant. And The Devil's Rejects, I mean, I don't even really know. Like, it is a horror film. It's definitely a horror film. But there's just so many layers to this movie in terms of like the characters I think the appreciation for this film goes in so many directions when you talk about like how it like I watched it last night for the podcast, and I've seen this movie dozens of times. As I said, if you're gonna point a finger and say you gotta pick your favorite horror film of all time, I'm gonna say The Devil's Rejects. I could sit here and point 1,000 movies I love, but The Devil's Rejects is probably the one I love the most. So I've seen this movie dozens of times. But sitting down and watching it last night, the one thing I really noticed, it's an hour and 49 minutes. And you and I have talked recently about movies that go way, way, way too long. This movie felt so breezy. Like when it was over, I was like,
breezy.
wow. Like I feel like this is only an hour-long movie. I know it's not, but I was just like, it's over. How did it get over so quick? And that's because the pacing, the direction, the script, the way everything unfurls in this movie is just, it's spotless. And when it was over, and I think this is a sign of a great movie, you're just like, man, I want to watch it again. I want to go back and see this scene. I want to go back and study this dialogue. I want to see this particular moment. It's brilliant.
And it's interesting. I thought about this too, about how fast it feels, even though it's nearly a 2 hour movie. Make no mistake that Rob Zombie, as a musician, understands the idea of rhythm really well. Like it's just something he knows. And I've heard this with really great directors. And I'll even give a nod to your guy Quentin Tarantino. There's something about rhythm in scenes. Scenes have to move at a certain pace. And if you have a musical acumen, and I've watched Scorsese, actually, he was directing on set, and I watched his finger, and as he was listening to the actors do the dialogue, he was almost conducting, and he was keeping time with his finger. And then as the director said the thing, he is like, or as the actor said his line, his hand landed like boom, right on the exclamation point. Good. And he goes, and cut. And you're watching him do that, and you go, oh, like that's why the scenes work for some reason. I think guys like Quentin Tarantino, guys like Scorsese, and guys like Rob Zombie have these movies that just sort of move because they understand the rhythm of a scene. That's something that's really hard to teach. It's like saying, like, can you dance? Like some people literally cannot dance. It's a thing they can't do. It's okay, Damon. It's a lot of people. A lot of people just cannot dance. My wife is like the Anderson Silva of dancing. Like she could just get up and dance. Like she just knows how to do it. I have to think about it. It's a lot of thought process. So Rob Zombie comes in with his musical acumen, and even though this is a very dialogue heavy movie, the scenes move with purpose. And you and I have seen the stuff that's on the cutting room floor, and it's very easy. You can go out there and YouTube it and see the cut scenes that they shot. You could just tell like there's nothing wrong with the scene, but it would have messed with the rhythm of the movie. So as a smart director, those things got cut. With regards to dialogue, it really struck me on this last viewing, Damon. This is a very Quentin Tarantino-esque movie because again, and I bet this Tarantino loves this movie. I'm almost sure of it. Again, both he and Rob Zombie love films of the 1970s. I think the difference between this movie and how I feel about your typical Quentin Tarantino movie is it is the grit and the grease and the messiness and the nastiness of the characters. Quentin Tarantino characters tend to be cool. And honestly, more of my complaint about Tarantino than anything is how much he's ruined Hollywood because all the other writers think they can write like him and they can't. He writes these like unrealistically cool characters, but they're charming and interesting, and he gets the best actors to do them, so it tends to work out. Rob Zombie goes, everything I know about the 1970s, people were trashy. People had bad teeth. People would ramble on about dumb shit, but he made them rambling on about dumb shit interesting and character forward. It mattered to that character. When I think everybody in this movie honestly had their finest hour. And we'll get to that. We have a lot to talk about with performances in regards to the categories. But I think about Baby in this movie. Sherry Moon Zombie. Now, I think a lot of people groan when they hear Sherry Moon Zombie and Rob Zombie together. Like, oh, of course she's in the movie. Of course she's the starring woman, blah, blah, blah. Whatever. I think it's cute that he's like, my wife's going to star in all my movies. I think that's a very nice thing to do. He made Baby make a lot of sense in this movie. Like this sort of arrested development, like childlike psychopath. She's still sort of stuck as a little brat. She's still like a little 12-year-old brat, and she has not grown out of it, but also now she's a murderous psychopath. And so every little thing she does, even if it's like, even if she's going on too long yapping in someone's face, it's torturous. It's psychotic. It freaks you out. And then she wants some tutti fucking fruity because she's a kid. Her name is Baby. I mean, that's literally her name. And they call her Baby because she acts like a baby. You know, that's who she is. So all of that combined, like all his reverence for 1970s films, his ability to create rhythm, and his understanding that if it is going to be laborious dialogue, it should matter, puts together something that is like genuinely perfect.
I think one of the most fascinating parts about this movie that I think is that comes down to plot, and that is making unsympathetic characters sympathetic. Because when you meet the Fireflies in this movie, and again, even if you haven't seen House of a Thousand Corpses, you realize right away when Otis is sleeping with a freaking dead corpse, probably not nice people, probably not good people
Right.
here. And you go down to the basement, and there's just cages of women, and like you realize like this is a murderous clan of psychopaths. But then you introduce John Quincy Widell, Sheriff John Quincy Widell, played by the great William Forsythe, one of the most underrated actors of maybe all time in terms of like how good he is.
Yeah.
And he's the paragon of virtue. He's a cop. He's the sheriff. And then you learn that he's avenging his brother George, who died in the House of a Thousand Corpses when he investigated the Firefly clan. He got shot and killed in the first one. And you don't really need to know that. You figure it out pretty quickly, as you know, when he talks about his brother George. But then you get this sheriff. And so battle lines are drawn right away in this movie where you're kind of like, okay, because generally speaking, in a lot of these kind of revenge or manhunt kind of movies, you're typically seeing the vast majority from one side or the other.
Yeah.
You think about Thelma and Louise, which is a classic. Ridley Scott, classic. Watched it a couple of years ago.
Tony Scott.
Tony Scott. So is it Tony Scott?
Oh, maybe it's Ridley. No, maybe
I think it is Ridley. I think it is Ridley.
I don't remember.
Tony Scott is a True Romance. Anyways,
That's right. Yes.
yeah. When you watch that movie, the way that you watch that movie is you feel sympathy for Thelma and Louise, you feel sympathy for Susan Sarandon and Gina Davis. And even though they introduce Harvey Keitel and there is a cop factor in there, and you get to know him and you kind of like Harvey Keitel, he's kind of a charming cop. The 85 to 90% of the movie is just focused on Thelma and Louise. So you're seeing the world through their eyes, what they went through, the murder they commit and their decision to run from the law from it. And so you're seeing pretty much everything in their point of view. And I would imagine the vast majority of people that saw Thelma and Louise felt sympathy for Thelma and Louise. Like, what happened to them? And you're like, they don't deserve this. They don't deserve to be hunted down like criminals. They're not bad people. And even though they introduced the cop, you're not seeing everything from the cop's point of view for the entire movie. You've already gotten to know and established Thelma and Louise. I think what Devil's Rejects does so brilliantly is you see this movie through both sets of eyes. You see it through the Fireflies because as venomous and evil and cruel and just vile and the acts they carry out, as hard as it is to admit, they're kind of charming. Like when you meet Otis and he has this way, the way his dialogue flows, the way he talks, the way he kind of approaches things, you're like, he's evil, but I kind of dig it. I kind of dig his character. Baby, the same way. And if you can't like Captain Spaulding, then we just can't be friends because that dude is just like charisma, swagger to the very core. And I know that's a hard relationship with an audience to find because you're like, I know I should do. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Nightmare on Elm Street, like where Freddy is an evil child killer, but people love Freddy.
You should hate Freddy.
Yeah, you should hate Freddy, but people love Freddy. And so it's kind of like that. Same with Jason, although Jason doesn't quite have a personality to go along with it. He's just a unspeaking killing machine. But kind of the same thing here, where you're watching these people carry out these horrific acts. You're like, God, what a horrible person. But he's so charming, and there's so much swagger, and just, I love it. And then you meet Sheriff Wydell, and he's got the same thing going on where you're like, I kind of dig this dude. He's kind of got that like backwoods badassery to him. He's got a great like timbre and his dialogue is great and his delivery is great. And he's just a badass. Like he's a badass cop. You're like, yeah, go out and fuck some shit up and get these guys. And then you see half the movie through his perspective. So you don't really know who to root for in a way. Like in any real world, you should be rooting for the cop to win because he's hunting down the murderous savages that killed his brother and have killed hundreds of others or many other people and done horrific acts while killing them. But there is still something charming about them. And then the other side is watching this cop go completely unhinged to the point where he's no longer interested in arresting them. He wants to find them, do to them what they've done to other people, and watch them die. And even though you should 100% be rooting for Sheriff Wydell, by the end of this movie, you're kind of like, man, I hope the Devil's Rejects survive. I hope the Fireflies make it out alive. And that is a moral conundrum that Rob Zombie puts you into because he gives you that point of view on both sides of this equation.
That goes right back to the 1970s, the ambiguity of the characters. This is 1970s was like the rise of the anti-hero, excuse me, the anti-heroes in cinema. I don't call the Fireflies anti-heroes. They're not heroes. They're actually the psychopathic killers, and what they do is completely abhorrent in this movie. But what he did so wisely was he cut this movie into two halves. The first half is their escape from the compound and their run from the law because now they know they're wanted and now they know they got to get the hell out of Dodge, right? And so what he does is the first half of the movie culminates in the Firefly family coalescing at the motel and viciously torturing and murdering a group, the Banjo and Sullivan band. So some husbands and wives, and it's brutal and it's nasty and it gives me Last House on the Left vibes, which Last House on the Left, I hate that movie. I genuinely hate watching that movie. There's a lot of sexual assault and there's a lot of like just torture of women in it. It's very disgusting and it's a very gross movie. I think there's a lot of that in this moment to kind of remind you about who you think you might be rooting for. Like, don't forget that these people, the Fireflies, are absolutely some of the worst people you'll ever want to run across. But then right after they're done doing that and they hop in the Banjo and Sullivan van, they go get ice cream and they go argue like siblings argue. He goes, there's still people behind those psychopathic eyes and you're going to know them. And I think that's some of the Bonnie and Clyde aspect of it too, where it's just like, you are going to fall in love with the human side of them, but you can't ever forget what they did over here. And I remember being so struck by what happens right after all of that, because that scene, oh my God, the scene at the motel is, it gets harder and harder to watch, actually, for, in all honesty, for me. Every time I watch it, it gets more and more uncomfortable. It's such a brutal scene. And then right after that, he cuts to Sheriff Wydell. And Sheriff Wydell has this dream where he sees his brother, and his brother's like, I'm locked in this eternal hell. My tortured soul cannot be released until you do one thing, and that is wipe them off the face of this earth. You understand Sheriff Wydell in that situation. You understand it, but you're also seeing someone go through a psychotic break. They don't spell it out for you. They don't, he doesn't, someone doesn't stop and go, boy, Sheriff Wydell's going off the deep end. He just, you see it blossom right there in the dream. He's going, man, I'm walking the line. I'm trying so desperately to be a good man. I'm trying to be the just and righteous hand of the law, but I'm thirsty for blood too, and it's in my blood to go out there and hunt them down like dogs. And then the first thing he does is he kills Mama Firefly, because he's like, if the revenge is going to start, it's going to start right here. It's going to start right here. And then he's going on his path. So all of a sudden you go, well, I can't necessarily root for him either, because he's supposed to uphold justice. He's supposed to bring them to justice. But now he's gonna find them, he's gonna torture them, and he's gonna kill them too. And that ambiguity. Well, at the time I was like, wait, he's the bad guy now, and they're the good guys? No, it's not that. It's ambiguity. It's going like, what is too far? What goes too far? And that is the function of Sheriff Wydell in this, is like, you can go too far seeking justice. It can happen to you too. You become the thing that you hate. He does exactly to them what they were doing to people. He ties them up. He tortures them. He gets drunk, spits in their face. He's doing what they do to other people. So he becomes no better than them. So when in that incredible sequence in the movie where he's got them and I know I'm skipping ahead. There's obviously the whorehouse in the middle, which is another one of my favorite sequences in the movie. But when he's torturing them back at their compound, he's being them. He's acting like them. So when Tiny comes and rips his head off, Tiny puts a stop to that psychosis too. And I go, damn. I go, that's when I first saw it, I wasn't ready for the headiness of what all that meant. At the time I was like, oh, I guess they're the good guys. No, they're not the good guys. They are just relentless. They are hard to kill. They are cockroaches. And that shit, oh, dude, it's so interesting and nuanced and challenging, Damon. I love that about a movie that will challenge you by going, I should not in this moment be laughing and having a good time with the Firefly family after what they just did. But I am. I'm seeing the human side of them. That's takes balls to fucking make a movie like that.
I want to go back and talk about the hotel scene because I've watched, as I said, I watched this movie dozens of times. But last night, getting ready for the podcast, I watched the movie and then I watched it with the director's commentary, which is Rob's. There's two commentary tracks when you get the Blu-ray. There's the director's commentary and there's the cast commentary. I didn't watch the cast version. I assume it's Sid Haig and Bill Moseley and probably Sherry Moon Zombie. I haven't heard it, but I assume it's them. But the director it's literally just Rob Zombie talking about the movie. And he talks specifically about that hotel scene at the Kiki Palms where the Fireflies kidnap Banjo and Sullivan and torture them and ultimately, kill them. And he said it was probably the hardest scene to shoot in the entire movie because Bill Moseley was just not into it. Like, he's like, if you ever, and I've met Bill Moseley a couple times, nicest guy in the world, sweetest guy in the world, a horror icon, but you would never know it if you met him. Like, he is like the sweetest, nicest, friendliest guy in the world. When I met him a couple years ago, I told him what a huge fan I was and like I loved the Devil's Rejects, and he was just like, oh, let's he's just chit-chatting with me, talking with me, and he's like, let's take a photo, let's do this. Like, he was just the nicest guy in the world. And he's like, if you meet him, you would never imagine he is anything like Otis, much less any of the other characters he played. And he said, so when they were shooting those scenes and he's torturing Priscilla Barnes' character, what is her name in the
Gloria?
Gloria, yes, the wife, the wife of Banjo and Sullivan. and he's torturing her. He's like, Bill Moseley was struggling. He's like, he was really struggling with it. He couldn't get in the headspace because it's so vile what he's doing to these people, especially to what he's doing to Gloria. And he's like, thankfully, Priscilla Barnes, who is a veteran character actor, probably know her best. If you don't know her from her younger roles, you probably know her from Mallrats. She plays the psychic in Mallrats. He said she lived in that moment. She became that character and lived in the torture she was suffering through. And she says if it wasn't for Priscilla Barnes basically telling Bill Moseley, go for it, do it.
Yeah.
I'm up for it. He's like, I don't know that we would have got it done because Bill was he could not get in the headspace. He really didn't want to do the things he was doing. And he's like, if it wasn't for Priscilla Barnes, I don't know that we would have gotten through that. He's like, she was a trooper. She was the winner that day. She deserved all the praise that day for delivering in that scene. And I love, like I said, the ensemble's so great. Jeffrey Lewis, who plays Banjo in the movie, he's like, or Roy Sullivan, sorry, he's Roy. He's, of course, a veteran character actor and also Juliette Lewis's father. He sadly passed away a few years ago, but Jeffrey Lewis is a great character actor. You get Lou Temple, who's been around forever, been in a million things. He's a great character actor as well. So it's all just like all the puzzle pieces fitting together. And that scene, as vile and nasty and dirty as it is, there's still humor. Yeah. You know, like and I'm ruining one of my favorite lines, but when Otis is fucking with them and Lou Temple's character, when Adam goes, please, mister, this is insane. He goes, boy, the next words that comes out of your mouth better be some brilliant fucking Mark Twain shit, because it's definitely getting chiseled on your tombstone. That's a great line. Like, how can you not like, yeah, great line. And just like just like the way he's fucking with them mentally when Baby's like doing the Chinese, Japanese, and he's like, you looking at my sister Hoss? You thinking dirty thoughts? Like, what do you think about it? Yeah, it's just, he's just, they fuck with them so thoroughly. And it's so mental more than it is physical. Now, when he does what he does to Gloria, it's pretty gross and pretty nasty. But even then, and I was watching the commentary track with Rob Zombie talking about it, he's like, even then, it's not even really sexual. Even though he's doing horrific acts to Priscilla Barnes' character in that moment, he said, really, it's psychological torture because he's fucking with the rest of them doing what he's doing. It's not like he's not getting off in the sense of like, I'm going to physically assault this woman. He's doing in the sense of I'm fucking with the rest of them. There's a difference.
I'm torturing everybody else.
I'm torturing everybody else. And that scene, it's hard to watch, man. That whole thing from top to bottom, and then even from beginning to end, and even when he takes Adam and Roy and they go out into the out in the wilderness to find the guns he did, even that, and then you have the scene with Baby making the woman slap Gloria, and you're letting her go to the bathroom, and then you're realizing the gun was never loaded. It's just all psychological torture, and that scene really encompasses what The Devil's Rejects is, because it's hard to watch, but you can't turn your eyes away either. It's kind of like the combo of that scene. Like, you're like, oh my God, like every time I see him doing what he does to Gloria, you're like, oh God, I shouldn't be watching this right now. But then it plays out, and you're like, God, what a brilliant scene. Like, it's just that internal conflict that he creates watching a scene that is so bad. And I bring this up, last thing I'll say about this, I talk about a movie like Martyrs all the time. Martyrs is one of the most brutal, grueling, just nasty, just gruesome films of all time. And I always say that there's torture scenes in that movie that make me not really want to watch it again. Like, it's good. I will always give it a positive review. Movie. But I don't necessarily want to rewatch it because that's kind of what it is. It's just the torture.
Yeah.
This movie has other layers to it. It's the dialogue. It's the psychological torture. It's things that, while as uncomfortable as it makes you, you can't look away. You don't want to turn away. I don't necessarily need to see Martyrs again. I have enough of that burned in my memory. But that scene is just about the torture. This movie, this scene in particular in the hotel, is about the torture, but it's also about the psychological torture and the way that they fuck with them so hard that it makes it bearable. It makes it to where you're like, I need to see it again. Even though I know it's gross and nasty and I shouldn't want to see this, I want to see it again. And I think that's what's different about this movie from the typical, what they call torture porn of horror. Like, it makes it so different because of all the other factors you pile in there.
There is on the flip side, when I think about the people from Banjo and Sullivan who are being tortured in this moment, it's the acting. Like Last House on the Left, which is a movie I hate, also terrible acting. So when it's like terrible acting combined with exploitation and sexual assault and torture, you just go, okay, well then what am I, what all I am doing is just watching those acts now. Right? I'm just watching those acts because like the actors aren't helping sell anything. It's just gross. And this is gross, but the acting, and you mentioned Priscilla Barnes. I knew her at the time. I didn't connect her to Mallrats, which is a movie I do love, but I didn't connect her. I was connecting her to Three's Company because I
Yeah.
grew up as a little kid watching her as Terry on Three's Company. And I was like, that's Terry from Three's Company, like being tortured. Like it, and boy, does she sell it. If the whole movie was the motel scene, she'd win best performance. She was incredible in that scene because she like it all just came bubbling to the surface. All the pain and all the torture that she was going through was coming through. You were getting great acting. And then you've got Adam and Roy on being cuckolded on the bed. They're so pathetic in that moment. And it's hitting you in the gut. You're like, "Oh my God, they have to sit here and watch this." And they have to sit there and watch it for risk of either Wendy or Gloria being shot to death or killed right in front of their faces, right? They're having to sit there because they know, because right away, right when what's his name's character, Brian Posehn's character, comes in the room, they shoot him dead. So they go, just so you know, we ain't fucking around. Okay. And so they know they're not fucking around. So they have to sit in the torture of it all. And it's so uncomfortable and it pulls you in. It becomes an immersive situation. And some people don't want to get that uncomfortable, Damon. And believe me, I don't yearn to be that uncomfortable. But in the hands of very talented actors, and Bill Moseley shining in that scene. Sherry Moon Zombie's over there blowing Wendy's hair like a little brat, like a little 12-year-old brat. She get blown on her hair. Uh, everybody is doing their thing in a way that is so real and palpable and feels authentic. So on one level, I'm watching all this terrible torture and all these really despicable things happening. On another level, I'm watching people present authenticity in a way that is just so intoxicating for me as a movie watcher and as a filmmaker. I just go, Jesus Christ, the acting in this is so tremendous right now. It's so incredibly good. I cannot get over how well everybody did that scene. Like everybody showed up. Everybody was like, we're gonna show up. We're gonna do a hard couple of days in this room, and it's gonna work. We're gonna make it work. And boy, did it.
It's funny because I think one of the things that also separates that scene and just the rest of the movie in general with the Devil's Rejects. And I love Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The original Texas Chainsaw Massacre is a classic.
Yeah.
I adore that movie. I think it's great. But there's not a lot of levity in that movie. It's a pretty dour movie.
Oh yes.
I think what makes Devil's Rejects such a rewatchable movie is that it's not that. Even though you're dealing with a group of psychopaths torturing and killing people and on the run, and then this, just brutally harsh sheriff who's ready to hunt them down, and he's not interested by the end of this movie, he's not interested in justice. He's interested in street justice and vigilante justice. He's interested in making them pay the same way they made other people, suffer and die. So it's no longer about I'm gonna put them in jail and arrest them. It's I'm going to torture and kill them. But I think what makes this movie so interesting and so much fun to watch, and I already talked about the dialogue and the acting, but it is the levity in this movie. Like, there's legitimately airy, funny parts. Like, you mentioned the ice cream scene. They've stolen Banjo and Sullivan's van after torturing and killing the entire group, and here they are rolling down the street talking about Tutti fucking Fruity. Hilarious. And even when Captain Spaulding has his dream with the porn star, and he wakes
Yeah.
up and he's with a totally much different looking woman, and he
That's
has
the funniest fucking scene.
and he
I should
has
have put funniest scene in this.
he has the monkey in the commercial he made, and that all, and he's like, didn't you get enough ass banging last night, woman? My dick is still sore. Like, there's just so much levity in that, and then even when they get to Charlie's Frontier Town and they're dealing with
Oh
that,
yes.
Charlie is hilarious. Like they get that whole scene going on. It's hilarious. Now, granted, after Sheriff Wydell shows up to take them hostage, not really arrest them, it kind of stops being funny. But the rest of the movie has legitimately funny, jovial moments, which you wouldn't think a movie like this could have. And I think that speaks to why this movie works on a new level in terms of like watching it over and over again, because I've seen Texas Chainsaw Massacre several times, but I have to get in a certain headspace
Yeah.
to watch Texas Chainsaw Massacre, because it is a very brutal, relentless film. I don't need to be in any kind of mood to watch Devil's Rejects, because it's got a little bit of everything. It's got the action, it's got the dialogue, it's got the funny moments, it's got the horrific moments, it's got the scary moments. It is like just a great big ball of amazing filmmaking that I don't need to be in any particular headspace for. Like if it's one of those movies, if it's on TV, I'm going to stop and watch it. Now, if Texas Chainsaw Massacre's on, I may not stop and watch it. I'm like, you know what? I'm not in that right headspace. I love that movie. I adore that movie.
Yeah, it's great.
But I'm like, maybe not right now. Maybe now's not the right time. There's never a bad time to watch Devil's Rejects, because it has so many different things in it that you can't help but appreciate.
I love you, brother. I love my cocaine better. Man, that's some cold shit.
Well, you got a nose like a vacuum cleaner.
There is like that side of it. I think a part of the charm for me specifically, I think, is just the dirtiness and imperfectness of the characters really reminds me of my family. It really reminds me of being an 8-year-old boy surrounded by my aunts, uncles, and older cousins who were like that. They were just buck-toothed and raspy voiced because they drank and smoked all day, and they were just kind of dirty old fools. And something about that I long for, weirdly. And so when you get a movie like this and characters like that and that whole horror house scene, I mean, it's like, I hate to say, the whole horror house scene really reminds me of life growing up, but it does. It really does. I mean, like Cleavon, Charlie, oh my gosh, E.G. Daly's character, Candy, reminded me of like my cousins. Like it's so wistful for me. And I don't think everybody will get that, because some people are going to be younger and they won't quite see it that way. But for me, there's a lot of like familiarity, and I'm just like, oh God, like the way I grew up. I don't know if it's like that for you, Damon, but I would imagine so. We come from similar backgrounds. We come from low income backgrounds, and I've said this before. Rob Zombie knows how to cast a movie. And this cast of characters, and we will get into it. We're going to get into categories here pretty quick. The way he casts movies make that authenticity that much deeper, because the more we get into talking about movies, the more I get into talking about the immersive quality of a movie. Does it pull you into its world? Part of pulling you into the world is having characters that are believable. PJ Souls is the mom. Believable. You know what I mean? Like Ginger Lynn as the fantasy makes a lot of sense for the time period, for all of that. It makes a lot of sense. And then, he wakes up next to the reality of it all. And I'm trying to be as kind as I can, but the reality was much different than Ginger Lynn. But it was so funny. What a funny, funny moment. She's chasing him around the house, calling him poopy. He's like, "Guys, shut up, woman." It's so much of it was so familiar to me. What the hell is wrong with me, Damon? Then I go, yeah, the Devil's Rejects really reminds me of life growing up.
You're not alone. Trust me. I mean, I grew up in a small town in Ohio, and there was a dude who lived down the street from me named Trampus, for Christ's sake. So trust me, I know. Yeah, it's funny because I just think it speaks to like why this film works so well, because you can attach yourself to it in a number of ways. Like,
Yes.
like for us, you and me personally, we grew up in small town poverty, situations. Like for me, it was small town poverty, and Rob Zombie talked about this. Like all the characters are loosely based on people in his real life when it comes to the Firefly clan, like Otis, Baby and Captain Spaulding in particular. And not that they were all murderous freaks or anything, but like the personality of them were people he grew up with. And I was like, yeah, I know people like that. Like I know the guy who is jovial and funny and always cracking jokes and everyone likes him, but then on a on a fucking flip of a dime, he will pull out a fucking gun and shoot you dead, and that's Captain Spaulding. Like that's 100% Captain Spaulding.
Yeah.
And there's a charm and a funniness to him. And I think that just speaks to how well this movie is written and directed and acted. And real quick before we get to categories, Patrick, can we talk? Well, I want to give credit. One thing I want to give credit to real quick. The soundtrack in this movie is amazing, by the way. I mean, it's so just good. It's all off the charts. Of course, the great Terry Reid commits a couple of songs to this. Sadly, he just passed away recently. The great scene in the brothel in the whorehouse when the Unholy Two, Diamond Dallas Page, professional wrestler, and the great Danny Trejo show up and kick the shit out of the Devil's Rejects, and Sheriff Wydell shows up and shoots Captain Spaulding. That whole scene was originally dialogue heavy. You actually see them talking in the scene, but Rob Zombie said when he watched it back, he's like, the dialogue didn't need to be there. And so he took this song, To Be Treated Right by Terry Reid, who was Terry Reid, if you don't know, great British singer and kind of a folk singer. He was the original guy that Led Zeppelin wanted to sing for them. Jimmy Page wanted Terry Reid, and Terry Reid's like, no, I'm not interested, but you should talk to this guy, Robert Plant, I know. He's good. You should check him out. Without Terry Reid, you don't get Led fucking Zeppelin, all right? And Rob Zombie, and then there's like, the Allman Brothers have a song in this. There's some like really good music. And at the end, of course, Freebird, the great Leonard Skinner song. And when they got done filming this, they had $50,000 left for music. Now, can you imagine? Now, for people who don't know, you have to license music to get in your film. And there's a reason why you don't see like a Taylor Swift song in a lot of movies, because you have to pay her an ass ton of money for her to license that song to appear in the film. Because remember, it's going to play in that film forever. It's going to, like, anytime anyone watches that scene, it's going to play. So you have to pay. And there's a reason why you don't see a ton of A-list, huge movies or huge songs in movies, or they create a song for the movie because it's so expensive. Now, when you look at the list of songs in the soundtrack, you're like, God, like he had some bangers in there, like legit bangers. And he said he had $50,000 left to do this. And somehow they got every single song they wanted for this particular film. And my favorite scene in the whole movie is the scene at the brothel when the Unholy Two come in, and that great scene where he chucks Otis out a window and he comes crashing down in slow motion and bounces off the porch and falls over, and you hear that song by Terry Reid, To Be Treated Right. And in the director's commentary, Rob Zombie said that was the stuntman who did that. No padding. Literally
you could tell.
Just jumped through crashed through the window and fell to the ground and bounced off. And it's just a stunt man. And there's no padding, no like rehearsal. He just literally jumped through a fucking window, which is crazy and awesome. But that's my favorite scene in the whole movie. And it's because of the music. That's like, it's like a very slow, very slow melodic song. But then you're watching these bounty hunters just kick the absolute shit out of the Devil's Rejects. And then he talked about the end of the movie, which I want to get to in a second. And he said he was trying to find the right song. And once again, when you see the ending, when the Devil's Rejects, when the Fireflies pile into the car and they're driving off, they're all beat up and bloodied and just they've been tortured by Sheriff Wydell, and they're driving away. There's dialogue there too, but he's like, it just doesn't work with dialogue. I need a song here.
Yeah.
And he thought about it, and he's like, you know what? What is it like the quintessential American song? Freebird. Everyone knows Freebird. Like, it's an iconic song. You hear Freebird, you immediately put up a lighter. And as big and as iconic as that song is, Rob Zombie had a bit of an epiphany. He's like, I don't know that I've really seen that in a movie before. Like, everyone knows it, but I don't know that I've ever really seen it used in a movie. And so they reached out. Leonard Skinner gave permission. And now Freebird is forever attached to that final scene, and there's no dialogue. Zero dialogue, and they're driving down the highway and they run into the cops. So I want to get to this anyways, Patrick. Let's talk about the end of this film, because they survive Sheriff Wydell's torture. Tiny shows up and kills Sheriff Wydell after Charlie tried to save the day, and Charlie gets killed. Sheriff Wydell gets his. He gets his neck twisted off and dies. And sadly, Matthew McGrory, the guy who played Tiny, died in the aftermath of this film. If you notice in the credits, the very first credit is in loving memory to Matthew McGrory, who played Tiny. And Tiny stops Sheriff Wydell. He puts them all in the car, and they say, "You going to be all right?" And Tiny's like, do your thing, get out of here, without saying a word, of course. And so they're driving down the road, set to the sounds of Freebird, and along the drive with Baby and Otis, or Baby and Captain Spaulding in the back, all beat up and bloodied, and even though Otis was basically crucified with nails through his hands, he's still driving, and then you see the look on his face. The fuck. We're not going to get away. And off in the distance, you see all the cops waiting up there in a roadblock. They found him. They're there. There's no escape. You're either going to get arrested or you're going to die in a hail of gunfire. And so Otis decides, you know what? Fuck it. We're going out in a blaze of glory. He hands out the guns to Baby and Captain Spaulding. And a really subtle thing that I didn't pick up on until I watched this and then watched the director's commentary. And I don't know if you picked up on this as well, because it's very subtle. Rob Zombie said one of the things he liked most about putting Captain Spaulding in the group, because remember, he's not in the group in House of a Thousand Corpses. He immediately said there's a conflict, there's a power dynamic at work between Otis and Spaulding. They're always at odds with each other because Otis believes he's the leader of the group and Spaulding believes he's the leader of the group. So they are constantly at odds with each other, arguing and battling, and everything between them. If you watch the movie, everything is an argument. And so at the end, so it's all a power play. And he said the end of the movie, when they're driving into the hail of gunfire, he hands Spaulding the shotgun, which is the better gun.
Yeah.
That is his subtle way of Otis saying, you are the guy. You are the leader. You are our patriarch. He hands him the better gun. And that's like his little passing of the torch of saying, here, you do your thing, lead us, basically, is what he said in that moment. And then they go down the hill of gunfire to the great moment in Freebird, was it, you want to fly?
Yeah.
And they
go,
hail of gunfire, shoot, everyone, and they're getting blasted, and then that's just the end of the movie. And then the credits roll, and you see all the little family flashbacks of, like, the Fireflies when they were happy. I don't want to rank this, Patrick. I don't want to sit here and say, oh, it's this or it's this or this. But I don't know that there's ever been a more perfect ending to a movie, the way it was crafted, because after everything Sheriff Wydell puts them through, tortures them, nearly kills them, fucks with babies, frees Baby, and he wants to hunt her down and kill her. They get away. And once again, this is a moral conflict inside yourself. You're like, these are bad people. I shouldn't be rooting for them to get away, but I'm kind of happy they got away. They get away, but they don't get away. And that ending with them still running into the police is just the ultimate, like, there is no escape from this. When you are a horrible person like this, like, they're going to catch up with you eventually. And they did. And that scene is just, and the setting to Freebird, it's just perfect.
I think back to the first time I saw this in the theater and they got away from Wydell. And I remember at the time actually being very disappointed that they got away. I go, oh, they should have died there. But of course it makes sense that he also needs to pay for his sins. I go, but okay, he's paying for his sins, but what about them? Like, they've done so much worse. Like, they have to pay too, right? And I'm like, they can't just get away. And when they're cruising through the twists and turns of the road, and then they stop and they see the big barricade, I go, they're not going to get away. No matter what, they're not going to get away. I don't know what's going to happen here. And then the music really starts to rise and happen. I think most directors fantasize about putting a badass song over a sequence of their movie, knowing damn well they'll never be able to do it because they can't afford the licensing. But most directors think that way. They go, oh, this whole scene set to X song or Y song, or this Led Zeppelin song, which had cost us $5 million, so that's never happening. So watching them go out in a hail of gunfire to Freebird is incredible. It's just it's a piece of cinematic, like, history. It's so beautiful and perfect. I don't think it's the greatest ending of all time because that belongs to The Mist. But it might be the second greatest ending of all time, or minimum top 5, and that's saying a lot. There's thousands and thousands of movies out there, and it's a hell of an ending. It's an unforgettable ending because justice ultimately caught up with them. Ultimately, it did. They just went out on their terms. It's like, fuck it. If we're gonna go out, we're gonna go out firing. We're literally gonna go out. Like it's a bookend to the movie because they started the movie that way. They started the movie shooting at
It's
the cops, and they end the movie shooting at the cops.
it's Butch and Sundance. It's Butch Cassidy and
Totally.
Sundance Kid. You know, the last stand against Oblivions. Like we're just gonna go out in a blaze of glory. We know we're not making it out of here, but we're not going down without a fight.
Totally, totally. And so it's still like it's not how would I put it? It's not what am I thinking of here? It's not unceremonious. It's actually very ceremonious. It's very pomp and circumstance. It's very it's a Viking send off, if you will. You know, like that's what the whole point of it was. And it's like, why not do that? Why not go out in a hail of gunfire? Like that's the way an outlaw goes out. And so I was just like, damn, this is fucking cool. Like it's just fucking cool. I wanted to see them get their comeuppance. They got their comeuppance. They just got it in the coolest possible way. And the whole music versus what you're seeing on screen is something called irony of tone. So in the whorehouse scene when it's Terry Reed's to be treated right and they're being treated oh so wrong, that's irony of tone, and it's a wonderful thing. I love that technique. It's a time tested technique, and it really does work. Yeah, I when I tell you this movie's perfect top to bottom, it's shit like that. It's like, yes, of course they need to get away from Sheriff Wydell, but they still have to pay for their crime, and they pay for it the way they pay for it. I love it. That's why I'm really pissed off about Three from Hell because
Okay,
I'm just like, this should have ended right here, and it didn't.
stop reading my mind, Patrick, because before we get to categories, I want to mention this because the ending of Devil's Rejects is flawless. Like it's such a great ending.
Yeah.
It's everyone kind of gets what they deserve. Sheriff Wydell, even though he was a lawman, like you're at some point you're just like he's going too far. He should not have stepped over that bound because now he's basically becoming what he hates. He's becoming the
Right.
Fireflies. He's becoming exactly what he wants to stop. And so you're like, this guy can't go on. Like, come on now. Like, what he's doing is not right. Like, I don't care what they do.
He'll
You
do
can't
it
say
to
what
others
they-
if he gets
Yeah.
away with it here.
Yeah, so you're not feeling sympathy that he dies, but as you said in that moment, you're like, well, hold on now. The Fireflies get away? No, they actually don't. They get cut down to hell of gunfire from the rest of the cops. It's the perfect ending. And I remember when I heard the announcement that Three from Hell was coming and that Rob Zombie was doing a sequel to The Devil's Rejects, and I was just like, my initial reaction was, how? Like, they died in a hell of gunfire. It was the perfect ending. But because I'm such a fan of the Devil's Rejects, because I was such a fan of the characters, and because I did trust Rob Zombie, I was like, I'll give it a chance. Like, maybe it'll be good. Maybe he'll come up with a great thing. And of course, along the way, you learn that, Sid Haig is not returning, or he has a very brief role because at that point he was dying. He was very old and he was, not in great health. And they kind of replaced him with Jeff Daniel Phillips, who's a good actor, by the way. I like Jeff Daniel Phillips. I think he's a really fun actor. But as soon as that happened, my initial instinct was like, okay, that's strike one. Like, you can't do a film because Sid Haig is like a huge part. Like, the personality of these movies is largely built around Captain Spaulding, largely built around Sid Haig. So immediately I was like, oh, I don't know how I feel about that. And I really didn't like the idea, like, how did they even make it? Like, come on now. Like, you gave them this cinematic exit, just like I go back to Thelma and Louise, them driving off the Grand Canyon. You gave them the cinematic exit with them driving into a hail of gunfire with a group of cops, and you literally watched them getting shot. Like, they're like the cutaways are them getting shot. You're like, how did they make it? So you really have to like bend reality to make it work to where they're still alive. And so I was like, you know what? I'll give it a chance. Maybe it's going to be good. And then I sat down and watched it. And I went and saw it in the theater the night it opened. And my two initial thoughts were, one, you can't do this without Sid Haig. He has a very brief role where he's in prison. It's an interview, and then he's gone. Can't do it without him. And two, it felt like Rob Zombie was trying to make another Devil's Rejects. The tone is similar, the plot is similar, except now it's the group coming. It's Danny Trejo's family coming because the Devil's Rejects got on Danny Trejo, the Rondo, his character, the bounty hunter, and so now his family is coming back. It's literally the same plot kind of over again, right. And except executed far less successfully. And I remember watching that movie and I was like, Sid Haig's not in this. It's just not gonna. It's not as good. Like it's just not. I love Bill Moseley. I think Sherry Moon Zombie. I like her character in this movie. And as I said, I like Jeb Daniel Phillips, but it's just not the same. And B, I was like, you just tried to make another version of your own movie, except it's not good. Like you made a not good Devil's Rejects sequel, and when it was over, I was just like, this should have never happened because you gave one of the greatest cinematic endings. And I'm saying cinematic because it's beautiful. It's a fitting ending. You're right when you talk about The Mist and Seven has a better ending. Yeah, those are better endings, but there was cinematic, like in that form and fashion, it's just you couldn't make it better. Yeah. And then you ruin it. And I know you don't really ruin it because this is still its own thing and you can just choose to ignore Three from Hell, which is kind of what I do.
That's what I do.
But I'm just like, why? Why?
Damon, you know why. Okay, Damon is, if you don't know, a journalist for mixed martial arts. You have seen and spoken to and interviewed the greatest fighters over and over and over again. It's very rare that any of them end on top, do they? Right? No, like never. They'll have the greatest victory of all time. Maybe Khabib Nurmagomedov might be the only guy who was like, I'm just going to end. I'm like 29-0. I'm going to call it a career or whatever he called it at. So he's like, so I don't have an embarrassing ending to my career. No other fighter has been able to do that. They just can't resist coming back for one more round. And I think that's Rob Zombie in a nutshell. He was just like, but I got an idea. I got this Mexican standoff. Like I can do it. It's, in a town square with the surviving members. And you just go, but Rob, you did it. But don't you see that you did it? He can't see it because so many can't. And I go like, Quentin Tarantino says it's 10 and I'm done. And then he'll do the 10th. Will he be done? I'd be like, you know what? I actually have one more. And then the one more isn't as good as the 10. And you go, you should have stopped because there's something about you're addicted to the thing. You're addicted to the high. And why wouldn't you be addicted to the high of this movie? This movie is perfection. He looks at it and he goes, you know what? I don't see anything wrong with this movie either. I think it's great. Even Rob Zombie, who is notoriously neurotic, was just like, I fucking nailed the landing on this one. This is perfect. He was just chasing that high one more time, Damon. That's what happened with Three from Hell.
Yeah, and it just didn't work, and it kind of, like I said, because even though I don't feel the same way about House of a Thousand Corpses as I do the Devil's Rejects. I've grown to really love House of a Thousand Corpses. Like I do really enjoy that movie. Yeah. I really do. And Devil's Rejects is better, but it's a totally different movie, as we said earlier. Like this was not set out to be a sequel to House of a Thousand Corpses. He was just using the characters, but the tone, the dialogue, the execution, all totally different. And then you get to Three from Hell, and you're like, hold on now, you just basically wanted to make like a carbon copy of Devil's Rejects, except you can't really do that. It's like when you get to the end, and I know this is a weird comparison, when you get to the end of Godfather 2, I know it was you, Fredo. You broke my heart. And the ending of Michael getting revenge on everyone that accosted the Corleone family. And you're kind of like, okay, what a great ending. Like, what a perfect ending to this movie. Michael gets his revenge. He finds out his brother betrayed him. And it's just a brilliant piece of cinema. And then you get to Godfather 3, and you're like, why exactly did you decide this was a good idea for Coppola? Like, I'm not saying there aren't some good moments in Godfather 3, but you're kind of like, yeah, I didn't need this. And there's a reason why the vast majority of Godfather fans are like, yeah, we don't really dig Godfather 3. I didn't really need this. Didn't really need this here. Sofia Coppola, no, thank you. and that's kind of what Three from Hell felt like. It's like, we got to go back to the well again. We got to go back for one more. And it's like, no, you really don't. Like you got
to go back to the island.
you weren't telling an uncompleted story. As much as critics of Return of the Jedi say it's the worst of the original trilogy, and I would agree, you still needed to complete the story.
Yeah, and it's not that bad of a movie either.
No, it's not. It's just not as good as the other two, but it's still totally watchable. But you had a story you were trying to complete. Godfather 2, you completed the story. There was nothing else you needed to do there. And same thing with Devil's Rejects. Like, you literally sent them out in a hail of gunfire, dying together as a family, and realizing there was no other out. Like, they're not going to go to jail, so, like, we're going to die right here together and as a family. You gave
Yeah.
them the perfect ending. We didn't need more. And so like that's kind of what I'm feeling like right here. Like in a way, and I know you're going to disagree with me on this one, Patrick.
Go ahead.
But in a way, it's kind of like the end of Aliens. Ripley saves Newt,
Yeah.
saves Hicks. They get in the ship, they go into cryo sleep, and she's like, "What if I have nightmares? You're not gonna have nightmares. We're gonna be fine." And if that was the last we ever saw Ripley, it would have been a pretty awesome ending.
Would have been
like,
fine.
You know,
I still like Alien
know.
3, but it would have
No,
been
I
fine.
do too. I do too.
Yeah.
Like I like Alien 3, but if you go back and listen to our Alien 3 episode, my biggest problem was how dirty they did Hicks and Newt. Like they just die in like a plane crash, like in a spaceship crash. Like come on, like you built these characters up so much, and that's how you get rid of them. Like, I'm not saying they can't die, but come on, it's a really unsatisfying way to make two great characters go out. But I didn't need it, is my point. Like, Aliens had a great ending. And if you just, that's how Ripley, and it was never going to be that way because the film was way too successful and, they were going to do more. But kind of like that, like, I'm like, you know what? I got my happy ending. I don't know what happens. Do they get back? Do Hicks and Ripley get married? Do they adopt new? Like, I have no idea. But they got their happy. They survived the xenomorph. They got away. I was fine with that ending. And as you said, I like Alien 3. But
Yeah.
But Alien 3 still has flaws, and I think one of my biggest flaws with that movie, one of my biggest problems is that, like how they kind of did Newton and Hicks dirty. But this one, you gave the perfect ending. You gave the iconic moment. I didn't need more, and yet you still gave it to me.
And this actually proves a larger point because I think people get upset with like franchise like reboots or legacy sequels. They go, "Wow, we didn't need that. We didn't need that." But time has proven that Alien sequels did not ruin Aliens. We still have Aliens. It's still there for us. I still have Devil's Rejects, and I don't need to visit Three from Hell if I don't want to. I can just watch Devil's Rejects and enjoy myself. Same goes for a lot of other sequels. So when people get up in arms about a sequel coming, it's going to come because these things make money, and that's what they're going to do. You can take it or you can leave it, and it doesn't do anything to tarnish the thing that you loved. That's the truth. It really doesn't. We aren't sitting here going, man, I would have loved the Devil's Rejects if Three from Hell hadn't been made. We're not saying that. We're saying the Devil's Rejects is one of our favorite movies of all time. And it spawned a sequel that we absolutely hate. But guess what? It did nothing for my love for this movie. So I want people to walk away with that because I get it from time to time. I get DMs from people that just go, "Can you believe they're remaking this? Can you believe they're sequelizing this? That's such bullshit." And I go, it's not going to do anything to the movie that you love. They could reboot it entirely with My Little Pony, and it's not going to change how you feel about that movie. It just doesn't. We are proof positive, Damon, as two of the biggest Devil's Rejects fans on the planet, that Three from Hell didn't ruin how we feel about the Devil's Rejects. It just doesn't.
Yeah. I didn't need it, but it doesn't ruin it for me.
Didn't need it, but I'm still here enjoying it. I got the Steelbook 4K on pre-order. You can get that too. They didn't pay us to say that, but Damon and I both have that thing ordered. Thank you, Schwink, for reminding us that it was on pre-order. This movie goes nowhere for me. Now they could make 20 more Devil's Rejects movies. It's not going to change how I feel about this movie. It's just not.
1,000%. I agree. You brought me around on that with the whole like it ruined my childhood because you remade it. No, it didn't ruin your childhood. You just
didn't ruin shit.
You didn't like the remake, and that's fine, but it didn't matter. It doesn't ruin what you did love, and I love that. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Patrick, let's get into some categories. We got a lot of fun categories with this one because, as you can clearly tell, that Patrick and I are huge fans of this movie. So let's kick things off as we do each and every week here on the show, and let's talk about best performance. Now, let me be honest about this, Patrick. I don't know there really is a bad performance in this movie. Like they're all good. Like, they're all fun. But we were talking kind of privately last night about this, and there were roles in this movie that almost pissed me off. They didn't get like award recognition. Yeah. That's how good the acting is in this movie. So Patrick, when it comes to the Devil's Rejects, who gets your best performance? One. You get one.
I can only choose one, damn it. But I cheated and made a bunch of other categories so we could talk about a bunch of other actors. But my best performance, and this is true, I do feel this is the finest performance in the entire movie, goes to Will Forsythe as Sheriff Wydell. When I saw this movie at first, I was just absolutely terrified of this man. He reminded me of, again, a lot of my family. He had a very similar cadence and look to the people in my family. So there was like this familial thing going on. But man, if I'm going to tell you right now, this is Will Forsythe's finest hour. There's no question about it. The man gave every ounce of himself to this role. And after the second viewing, when I took my father-in-law to see it in the theaters, I thought to myself, if he doesn't get nominated for Best Supporting Actor this year, this is an absolute travesty. And of course he didn't, because this was a grindhouse movie that didn't even make a lot of, for the time, didn't even make that much money at the box office. So ultimately, he gets left in the dust with not even an honorable mention. But it's his best performance of all time. Without a doubt, Will Forsythe's never been better. He's a good actor, but he's never been better than this moment. As a man who's slipping off the edge and crossing a line he was never supposed to cross. Come on, Damon. I mean, what a performance. Powerhouse performance.
So when Rob Zombie was casting this and he was trying to find the perfect person, and he talked to William Forsythe, because William Forsythe apparently has a reputation for being a bit of a dick on a film set. Like, he's not easy to work with. And Rob Zombie said, I heard that about him, so I kind of went in a little trepidatious, like, oh God, is this going to be a bad fit? And he said he got on the phone with William Forsythe and they talked for a couple hours, and he got it. And he's like, we were just kindred spirits. Like, we got it right away. And so my experience with him was great. He was an incredible part of this cast. I never had a bad experience with him. But he said what really sold him when they were talking about this character of Sheriff Wydell, they both came down to a point where they're just like Robert Shaw in Jaws.
Yeah.
He's a hero, but he's kind of a morally corrupted hero because he's so obsessed with getting the shark that he doesn't give a fuck if his boat survives, if Sheriff Brody survives, if Hooper survives. Doesn't give a shit. He's just single-minded purpose going after this shark. But you love him. There's so much charisma and swagger to Quint. You can't help but love him. And they both talked about how Robert Shaw was one of the greatest actors of all time, who just doesn't get the recognition he deserves. Sadly, he died a few years after Jaws, and so he just wasn't around that long. But he's like, they both were like, this guy's brilliant. And he's like, I want you to approach the role like that. That kind of morally ambiguous, where you're just like, I know he's the good guy, but he's kind of not. And last night it struck me. We were talking to him last night, talking about how great he was in this role, and it finally struck me what this role reminds me of. And you talk about Oscars. Little Bill Doggett from Unforgiven. Little Bill Daggett. The great Gene Hackman as the sheriff from that town. He is a badass. He is ruthless. He is unrelenting. When he catches English Bob and he fucks with him and beats the shit out of him on the street and sends a message to everybody else saying, don't fuck with this case, you're going to end up like this fucking piece of shit on the ground right here. I'm absolutely beating the shit out of him. And the entire town's like, oh God, little Bill, like he's fucking, Jesus Christ. That's what it reminded me of. Like, William Forsythe as Sheriff Wydell reminded me so much of Little Bill Daggett in that moment. And remember, Gene Hackman did win an Oscar for that performance in Unforgiven. Yeah. Morally ambiguous, where you're just like, oh God, like I like him, but he's a pretty like cruel, mean dude. That's what Sheriff Wydell is, and that is William Forsythe's performance.
The man that is willing to burn it all down to get what he wants. It's a very magnetic archetype to go, okay, like, yeah, you're on the right side of all of this, but boy, are your tactics questionable. And not only are they questionable, they're downright reckless, and you are on the edge of actually blowing up your whole goal for what you want, which is you want vengeance, right? And that's kind of like the grand trope of Batman is like, he never wants to cross the line, because if he does, he knows he can't go back.
Yeah.
These kind of characters are the ones who crossed the line. And then you watch they only talk about what that could mean in Batman. In movies like this, in movies like Jaws, and movies like Unforgiven and The Devil's Rejects, the man crosses the line and finds out the price that he will pay. He literally gets eaten by the shark, right? Then the shark represents his own veracity for the things that he is after. and he is consumed by them. I mean, quite literally. It's a fucking genius movie. Jaws is amazing, but so is this, and so is that motivation. And it's so smart that they were just like, yeah, Robert Shaw, like go use that as your guiding light, and it produced this performance. I mean, come on, Damon, can't be
It's
beat.
great. So for me, best performance, I had a couple ideas in here because, as I said, I think everyone is great, but I ultimately had to give it to my guy Sid Haig for Captain Spaulding because when I heard Rob Zombie talk about how he wanted to, like, he didn't want this movie to seem overly enjoyable, and that's why, like, right away he tried to get Captain Spaulding out of the clown makeup because he didn't want it to be jokey. Now, it is a
Right.
funny movie, as we already mentioned. There's some legitimately funny moments, but he wanted Captain Spaulding to take on a different persona than what he had as kind of like the guy you meet in that opening scene in House with a Thousand Corpses. And he does. And Sid Haig, to me, is one of the most underrated actors. Sadly, of course, Sid Haig is gone. He is one of the most underrated actors of all time because when you see Sid Haig in a movie, he's a huge star of a lot of blaxploitation films in the 70s, did a lot of Pam Grier movies, things like that. He's great. And he's just great in everything he's done. Like everything I've seen Sid Haig in, he's fun. But this is his most iconic role. And he laps it up, man. He is so deliciously evil in this movie. And as I said, that kind of presents you with that moral conundrum of like, I can't like these people, but I kind of like these people. Like you can't not like Captain Spaulding. Like you can't not like Sid Haig's performance as Captain Spaulding. And what really sold it for me last night, watching this for the umpteenth time, was in the moment when he's sitting there smoking weed and Sheriff Wydell shows up and he takes a shot of whiskey and he says, "Charlie, my brother from another mother," and he gets up and he sees him and they're face to face and he's just like "I finally found you, clown," and he says, "You gonna get the killing started? You better get started right here with me first, boy." Like he's
Yeah.
defiant. In that moment, he's like, "Fuck you! I don't care that you found me.
Yeah.
Kill me now." And
Kill me dead.
this
Yeah.
also speaks to William Forsythe's brilliance, which was Rob Zombie's ideas. Like in these moments, every moviegoer is like, "Why are you talking to him? Just shoot him." Like, why are you fucking around with the killer, the serial killer? And he's like, "Okay." And so he's like, "You better start the killing right now, boy." He's like, "Okay." And he shoots him in the stomach, and he basically incapacitates Captain Spaulding. I thought that was great too, because you're right. Like in that moment, everyone's like, "Just shoot him, just be done with it. Don't give him a chance to kill you." And Sheriff Wydell's like, "Okay," and blows Sid Haig. So it's just but that scene when he's just like, you want to get the killing started, get it killed, get it started right here, boy." I love that defiance, that fuck you attitude of Sid Haig. He's just so good in this movie.
Oh my God. What a great collision that was. It was a really great moment. And of course, yes, Sid's performance was so great. But it was foreshadowed really early in the movie, which is in during the standoff in front of the house. Chief Wydell takes a slug to the chest with his bulletproof vest, and it barely bounces off him. Like it bounces off and he just keeps charging ahead. So he is not to be fucked with. But Sid Haig's character, Captain Spaulding, is not to be fucked with either. You don't want to get in close quarters with him. He does not give a fuck. And so it was so great that in that moment, he was like, "You're going to take a fucking slug to the chest and it's going to put you down. That's what's going to happen right here, right now." I love that. And those little, it's just those little moments, those little setups and payoffs they're so good. And I loved everything that Sid Haig did in this movie. He did it with, it was like it was either a 10 or a 1, right? Like so it'd be like, "Don't you like clowns? Aren't we fucking funny?" Like I was like, Jesus Christ, it's so fucking good. And then just other moments where Charlie takes the cocaine away and he goes, "That's some cold shit." Like just a little pathetic little whimper, you know what I mean? Like he just knew where to play the notes and how to play them.
I love the scene, like the interactions he has with Bill Moseley when he's like, "Well, where the fuck have you been?" And he's just like, "Well, make your move, Whitey." He just has so much like delicious, like the way he plays it is just it's so off the charts. It's so good. Patrick, next
Fantastic.
category. MVP, our Ken Foray Banana Hammock MVP award, named after a great character actor who is also in The Devil's Rejects. Ken Foray from the movie From Beyond, where he jumps down a flight of stairs and into a basement to kill a creature wearing nothing more than a thong bikini. If that's not an MVP performance, I don't know what is. So, Patrick, when it comes to The Devil's Rejects, Who gets your MVP?
Damon, I think there's going to be a hard, fast rule on this podcast is that whenever Ken Foray is in the movie, he gets his own damn award. Okay. Ken Foray as Charlie is 100% my MVP. I was always enamored with the character of Charlie. He's so great. Another morally ambiguous character because you do have this scene, and I was curious. I was watching the chicken scene where him and Cleavon go to buy the chicken, and I was going, wait, okay, how does this pay off again exactly? Well, how it pays off is that on their way back from buying this chicken, they get cut off by Wydell, and Wydell's like, you're gonna hand them over on a silver fucking platter. I know you have them. Don't fuck with me. I know you have them. You're gonna hand them over. And he hands them over. And it's just like, oh shit. Like without his cooperation, you don't get the rest of the movie. You don't get the rest of the sequences. Even though, like later on, yes, he does try and redeem himself by going to save them. It's too late. Like his choices catch up with him, which is fantastic. I love it when movies do that. But it was so important in that moment when he was given that choice by Wydell. You're going to hand them over on a silver platter to me tonight at midnight, or it's your ass. And he was like, well, I could go back right now and go, get in the fucking van. We're out of here, kids. He was just like, nah, I'll get mine. I'll get mine tonight. I'll watch them get served up. And he loses everything in the process, right? They kill his women and all that stuff. So at the end of the day, he's left with nothing other than to go and try and redeem them. And he still gets the axe because that's how this shit plays out. I fucking love it.
Rob Zombie talked a lot about sequels. Now he doesn't like sequels, but he thinks of movies like Empire Strikes Back is a great example of how you can continue a story and make it great. And I never really thought about it this way until reading the interview and watching this again last night. But Charlie is Lando.
Yeah.
For Empire Strikes Back. Like when Lando helps Han and Leia and Luke and they're in Cloud City, and then Vader shows up and drops the dime on him, and he's just like, I had no choice. Like they gave me no out. And he turns on him. But then Lando, of course, goes back and tries to save Han and Leia and get him out of there. That's Charlie. Charlie is Lando. Like he's just like, I'm caught, I'm screwed. There's no getting out of this. But then when the Unholy Two show up and Wydell shows up and he realizes this isn't about arresting them. They're going to torture and kill my brother from another mother. And he's like, I can't allow this to happen. And so he tries to save them. Of course, he does get axed in the end, but he's so good. I mean, if Ken Foray's in your movie, he's making your movie better. Period.
Yeah. Straight up. He's still the only dude who could rock with Leatherface.
Yeah.
Nobody else has gone toe to toe with Leatherface and made it look like some work. So Ken Foray will always be the MVP. That's just how this goes.
Yeah. So Patrick, I know it's generic, it's cheesy, it's pretty obvious, but I can't not give the MVP in this category to Rob Zombie. I mean, come on.
Of course.
I think, and this goes beyond just the typical writer, like he's the writer and director. Like it goes beyond that. I think why Rob Zombie gets MVP for me goes to this is everything about this movie is him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I've said it before. Like, I do love a good writer director. Like, I think it's a great role. But I've said on this podcast before, I love writing. I love screenwriting. I love writing in general. I'm a professional writer for my living. But I don't really have a desire to direct. I can see things visually in my head when I'm writing, but actually executing on camera doesn't really interest me. I want to be a writer. Now, you do both. You're a writer-director, but your directing is literally your job. It's what you do for a living, but you are a writer-director, and I commend guys like yourself who can do both. Guys like Quentin Tarantino. Now, you're not a Tarantino guy, but I think what makes Tarantino so special is because he is that. Because when, like, Scorsese doesn't write his scripts. He directs.
Spielberg doesn't write his scripts.
Yeah. So to do writing and directing is a different skill set. It's a very unique skill set. But then you go beyond that because you're ultimately dealing with a smaller budget movie. Now, by the way, I know he said $7 million isn't a lot. Rob Zombie was fine with the budget. Like, he loved the budget. He had plenty of money after House of a Thousand Corpses had nothing. But Rob Zombie's fingerprints are on every level of this movie, from the writing to the directing to the cinematography to the music to the casting. This is Rob Zombie's movie from start to finish. And unlike Halloween, which was a remake, so I'm not even talking about the remake aspect. He's talked very openly about how horrible that experience was because of the interference from the studio, which at the time was Harvey Weinstein. He would get
Yeah.
calls from him daily saying, this fucking sucks and you got to do this, you got to do that. And then as soon as the movie became a success and opened to the biggest opening in that weekend history, he gets a call saying, we got to do a sequel. Come on, man. But he's like, it was a horrible experience. This movie was Lionsgate saying, here, Rob, here's $7 million. Go make your movie. And what we got was The Devil's Rejects.
Yeah. I mean, listen, Damon, you said it perfectly. This is the stamp of somebody's particular like vision completely. Like it's the most complete vision I've ever seen from Rob Zombie. Completely. I think he was playing around with it in House of a Thousand Corpses because he was finding his footing as a filmmaker. But The Devil's Rejects is absolute lock-in. It is his vision, and it comes through so well. And this is we're talking 20 years now. 20 years this movie's been out, which I can't even fathom that. 20 years it's been out, and 20 years later, I still absolutely love every second of this movie. Every inch of the frame is perfect in what it intended to be. He executed it on a level that I think most directors aspire to. That's why he will always be a name that comes up because he made this movie, and he would not have gotten the meeting for Halloween if he hadn't made this movie. He definitely wouldn't have got it with Thousand Corpses. Overall, that did not strike very well in Hollywood circles. But Devil's Rejects, everybody saw. They couldn't deny what they saw there. So then he became a guy that they kept pulling into more meetings because they were like, well, if you did that, can you do that for us?
Yeah.
Because everybody saw it. Everybody saw the thing. They saw the lightning strike. We're all looking for it. He got it with The Devil's Rejects.
100%. 100%. Yeah, it's just a brilliant all the way through. Patrick, let's move on to our next category, and it is best lines. Not best line, best lines, because there was absolutely zero chance we were going to just pick one from this movie and say, oh, that's the only line we have. So, Patrick, I know you have two, I have two, and then I threw in a bonus one because I know you'll enjoy this other one. Would you like to set up your two lines? I don't know if you want to go in chronological order, you want to go in your favorite order, but I got them queued up, so you tell me whichever one you want to go with, and we'll go with your first lines first.
Let's go chronological, and we'll start with Chief Wydell's opening salvo in the movie. So when the group of cops descend on the Firefly compound, we meet Sheriff Wydell. First, we're seeing just kind of cops sprinkle in, and we're like, okay, a big raid is going to happen, and then he shows up. And I got to tell you, when you introduce a character, you got to introduce them with some style, with some flavor. You got to introduce them in the most them way possible, doing the most them thing they do. That's exactly what you get in this moment. And you get this opening rally cry from Chief Wydell. And then he takes that slug to the chest, and you realize you're dealing with a bad motherfucker. And here it is.
Mr. Dobson, it's time for us to do what the good Lord would refer to as a cleansing of the wicked. And what my brother George, God rest his soul, used to call 100% Alabama ass kicking.
So you think we're gonna die here today?
Dying's not an option. Now you stick that back in that gray matter of yours and you make that stick. Because any other thought's gonna get you cold slab, toe tagged, and mailed home to your mama in a plastic bag. Are we Crystal?
Crystal, sir.
Gentlemen, let's do what God made us to do.
I love it.
That is Chief Wydell in a nutshell. What he's saying right there. That's everything you need to know about him in the opening line. It's brilliant.
It's so good. It's just like you're going to get toe tagged and sent home to your mama in a plastic bag.
Well, my brother called an Alabama ass whooping.
I love it. Yeah, he's so good.
So
like
good.
that just sets the stage for who Wydell is. Next line, Patrick.
Next line is maybe the most famous line, maybe next to Tutti Fruckin' Fruity. This is Otis himself letting you know who the fuck he is, all over Adam's face.
I am the devil, and I am here to do the devil's work.
Now, do you know the origins of that line? I'm sure you do.
I actually don't, but I know it's not his, right? It's not his line.
It's reportedly what the Manson family said when they took Sharon Tate, and it was I'm the devil. That's why you see a version of that in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood when Quentin Tarantino has Tex Watson in there when he goes into the house with Brad Pitt's character and he says, "I am the devil and I'm here to do the devil's business." And Brad Pitt goes, "No, it's dumber than that." Whatever, like he kind of mocks him for it. But that's supposedly the line spoken by the Manson family was, "I am the devil and I'm here to do the devil's business or the devil's work." And so I am the devil, I'm here to do the devil's work. That is supposedly what the Manson family said, which is ironic because this movie came out in 1978 and we know the La Bianca murders were back in 69. So this would have been a few years later, chronologically anyways. So
right. Yeah, it would make sense, but it's very like Otis Firefly. Like he is. You look at the whole group. He's the most purely evil of the three.
Yeah. So my two lines are both pretty iconic, and I'll kick things off with Captain Spaulding after his car runs out of gas and he runs into PJ Souls and her son at the gas station. He needs to take her car, and it's funny, but also, and this speaks to the brilliance of this script. It's funny, but then immediately menacing, and it's just like you switch from like this jovial, funny Captain Spaulding to where you just fucking fear this guy immediately. And I just love this interaction.
Oh, hi.
Hi. I'm going to have to be taking your car today. See, I have some top secret clown business that supersedes any plans that you might have for this here vehicle.
What's that about clown business?
Do I stutter, bitch?
There's no line I quote from Devil's Rejects more than when I just go, "Do I stutter, bitch?"
And the way his face changes from that shit-eating grin to just his mouth drops and his eyes go wide. Do I stutter, bitch? God damn, he sounds like every uncle at a party on a Saturday night at my family's house.
100%. Now my second line is what I always say is my favorite line, just because it is like it's one of those lines, like it reminds me of, just like when you think about like Clint Eastwood saying "Make my day," or do you feel lucky, punk? Well, do you? Or just thinking like iconic lines. I love to smell napalm in the morning. There's just certain lines that you're gonna need a bigger boat. There's just certain lines you hear and you're like, I immediately attach it with that movie. And this is the one for me, and it's Otis in the hotel room as he's getting ready as he's basically starting to fuck with the Banjo and Sullivan, and Adam makes the mistake of voicing his objection, and Otis tells him to pipe down in no unnecessary terms.
Please, mister, this is insane. Boy, the next word that comes out of your mouth better be some brilliant fucking Mark Twain shit, because it's definitely getting chiseled on your tombstone.
Poor Adam, man. He's a real fucking, he's just a doormat in this movie.
That I've never talked to Rob Zombie, but if I talked to him, I'd have to ask him, like, tell me the origin of that line, because it's just so great. He's like, boy, the next word that comes out of your mouth better be some brilliant fucking Mark Twain shit, because it's definitely getting chiseled on your tombstone. I just it's such a great delivery.
Yeah, it's what a phenomenal movie, Damon. I just at top to bottom, everything about this thing works.
And now here's your bonus line, because how can you talk about the Devil's Rejects and not talk about this line, because it's just so funny, and it literally is just like the perfect definition of what this movie is and why you can't help but not like the Firefly family.
What is your fucking problem? I'm in and out in 2 seconds.
I think I'm gonna get me some Tutti fucking Fruity.
Tutti fucking fruity, that sounds good.
Tutti fucking Fruity!
Shut up!
Tutti fucking Fruity! Tutti fucking Fruity!
Shut up!
Tutti fucking Fruity!
Listen, there is no fucking ice cream in your fucking future.
And then
cut
seconds later, they're eating their ice cream.
Classic transition. Oh my God. And honestly, I think it is the transition that sells it, because the Tutti fucking fruity is so memorable. Everybody says it. I mean, I think driving home, my wife's in my face going Tutti fucking fruity. But when he goes, there is definitely no fucking ice cream in your future, and then immediately cut to them eating ice cream. It's such a great comedic beat. Like you could learn so much from watching how one scene changes into the next, and that right there it's absolute perfection.
I love it. And then, of course, she shows the ice cream in Otis's face. And, like, it's so funny because as psychotic and evil as these characters are, they're still family. And, like, your little sister fucking with you and your stepdad, kinda, I guess. I don't know what you would call Spaulding, because Spaulding is baby's father, but clearly not Otis's dad. But it's just great. He's just like, there's no fucking ice cream in your fucking future. And then there they are eating their ice cream cones. And he's like, Tutti fucking fruity. It's just so great. It's so great.
It's so good.
Patrick, let's talk about most brutal kill. Now, there are a lot of brutal kills in this movie. It is, again, very relentless movie. So when it comes to The Devil's Rejects, what is the most brutal kill?
For me, it's going to be Adam Banjo. Now, Otis takes Adam and Roy out to the desert where he buried some guns, and he's going to make them dig them up, and then he's going to kill them there. And he makes it very clear to them. He goes, yeah, this is the end of the line, pals. Like, we're done here after you dig up my guns. And then they want to fight back about that because they're like, well, this is the moment. We're going to fight for our lives. And damn it if Adam doesn't try. I mean, he knocks Otis over the head, and he tries to beat him down. Otis gets the better of him, gets the jump, and shoots him by the side of the neck, and he's starting to bleed out when one of his arteries or his aorta or something, like he's really going. And the fact that he was sitting there holding his neck and you could see the blood just fountaining out between his fingers, super brutal. It's a really brutal thing. And you get hit in the aorta, you have seconds to live. You are going to die very quickly. And just hearing him gurgling and begging for his life, and then Otis delivering the line, I am the devil and I'm here to do the devil's work. And you're just like, God damn. And then, and he beats the shit out of Adam and then cuts his face off. And I'm just like, wow, that was dark. And boy, did the temperature change in the theater after that kill. Because then you realize, yes, everything that I've seen up to this point is terrible. But man, watching somebody die in such a terrible way on screen it's still to this day very jaw-dropping.
A little addendum to that scene, which is great, by the way, is when they go back to the motel and they're torturing Wendy and like trying to figure out what they're going to do with her. And then Otis bursts through the door wearing the Adam mask, and they're like, what the fuck? And he pops through and he tells them, and then, him and Spaulding argue, as I said, like they're kind of battling for leadership. And then just before they're getting ready to go, he takes the mask off and he moves them out. And he's like, I'm sorry, but the Banjo and Sullivan performance has been canceled. And Wendy's like watching her husband's like face, like in a fucking, and that was Bill Moseley. Rob Zombie said that was Bill Moseley's little ad lib, was doing the talking mask. Yeah. That was Bill Moseley who came up with that idea. He's like, that wasn't in the script. Bill Moseley's just like, oh, the Banjo and Sullivan show's been canceled. That was Bill Moseley coming up with that idea. I love that idea. So it's weird for me to say the most brutal, but it also has to go in context of how it happens. Because brutally, you're right. Like cutting a dude's face off after nicking him in the neck and stabbing him in the leg. Don't forget that. He stabs him in the leg first.
Yes.
And he nicks him with that. That is definitely more brutal in that sense. But the one that is just shocking in how it happens is Jimmy the Roadie.
Yes.
They've kidnapped the Banjo and Sullivan group. They got complete control over them. They are hostages. And then the knock on the door comes, and Otis goes, who the fuck is that? And he goes, that's Jimmy, our roadie. And Baby goes, I'll get him. And she brings him out, and she goes, hey, what are you doing? He's like, oh, am I in the wrong room? He's like, no, you got the right room. Roy's in here. Come on in. And he gets him in there, and he just puts him down on his knees and just fucking shoots him. Blood splatters everywhere. Fucking Adam pukes all over his wife. And they're all like, oh, my God. Because up to that moment, it's scary. You're being held hostage. You're being held at gunpoint, knife point, and these people are clearly unhinged. But no one's been hurt yet. Yeah, he grabbed the wife out of the shower naked and chucks her on the bed, and he's like, "What the fuck are you gonna do? What the fuck are you gonna do?" Like he's fucking with them. But to this point, no one's actually been harmed. And then Jimmy comes in, he just puts him on his knees and fucking blows him away. And the blood goes flying, and the entire group goes, oh my God. That to me is the most brutal, because at that point, whatever internal feelings the Banjo and Sullivan group had that maybe they're going to make it out of here, like maybe this is just not, like, it's going to be bad, but like they have a chance to survive, gone. And it's just because the way he just brings him in and fucking shoots him dead, blood splatters, and they're like, oh fuck. It changes the temperature in the room completely.
This is classic Hitchcock shit, right? So we already know, as the audience, we have superior position to the characters in the movie. We know it's Jimmy, right? Jimmy's Brian Posehn's character.
Jimmy's right.
Jimmy has no idea what's going on in this room. He's probably off smoking weed. He has no idea what's happening. They know how nasty and dangerous these people are, but they don't know what they're capable of quite yet. And so the fact that when Baby answers the door, you and I know, do not go into that room. Whatever you do, turn around, right? But they're they make it very clear that these guys are very charmed by Baby. She's very beautiful, and so they're just immediately charmed and disarmed by her. But you and I know there's a ticking bomb under the table, which is the classic Hitchcockian like idea of just of setting that superior position for the audience. We know how bad it's going to be for him if he goes in there. She drags him into the room, and without hesitation, they blow his brains all over the Banjo and Sullivan. Like, and you're just like, oh, they're not fucking around. and it's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time before all of them die. And how are they going to die? And now you're going to drag them through that situation, but without that kill, which is to me the most realistic and sort of like unceremonious kill, but that's how real kills kind of go. That there's a brutality to that very simple thing. It's like, get on your knees, bang. We're not going to talk anymore. That feels real and crunchy and nasty and hopeless. So for you to pick that kill, it may seem innocuous in the grand scheme of things. It's not. It's the moment where you understand that your fate is sealed.
Yeah, and that whole scene, and by the way, I want to mention this in cinematography because I know you'll appreciate this. So the outside of the Kahiki Palms Motel is a very famous movie set. It's been used in other movies, like the outside, but it's all outside. It's all exteriors. There's no interiors. And he said the interior, so like when they open the door and go back in, that's just a film set that they built. And he said when you see the sunshine, the really brutal Texas sunshine coming through those windows, and it's kind of bathing them in light throughout that entire scene, that's all lighting. That's not real. Yeah. They're in a soundstage at that point. And I just thought it looks genuine. Like it looks like they're in the dark, the depths of the Texas sun. And it's brilliant. It's so brilliantly lit because like when you see the outside, that's just the outside. As soon as they open that door, it's a totally different set, totally different film set. But he's like, I love the way it's cut because you never know, and the lighting works perfectly. He's like, I wish I had his name, but he gave credit. Rob Zombie gave credit to the lighting guy who did it. He's like, he lights it brilliantly. Like you would never know that you're not in the outside in the Texas heat when you're in this room. And he's like, that's all done on a soundstage. Like that was all lighting from the outside, just make it look like it's daylight because it wasn't actually daylight.
The magic of movie making, right? Great cinematographer, great gaffer, putting the lights up for you, a great production designer who is making the inside of this set feel like the outside of a decaying and decrepit motel that's been just rotting in the California sun, and go, okay, how do we make that look real on the inside too? That's why I love movies, Damon, because all that shit comes together. Rob Zombie didn't do all that. The whole crew came together and made that happen. I love shit like that.
I also love when you said like it's not cinematic, and I always remember the line, a great scene from I think it's the end of season 4 of The Sopranos or season 3 of The Sopranos when Tony sends one of his guys to basically intimidate his former mistress when she's like threatening to tell his family and shit, and he pulls out a gun and he says he's like, here's the point to remember, it's not going to be cinematic. It's not going to be beautiful. It's not going to be some great scene. And remember this, my face is the last one you'll see before you die. And that kind of reminds me of Jimmy in here. Like, there's no cinematic. It's not like, he doesn't even get like he doesn't even get the exit that Adam gets. As brutal as Adam gets it, like, that's a very, like, orchestrated, brutal scene. They just bring Jimmy in. They just shoot him in the fucking head. Like, you're worthless to us. You're just dead. It's just so brutal. Patrick, next category. Favorite side character. Now we know the main characters, the Fireflies, Captain Spaulding, Baby, and Otis, and of course we know that Sheriff Wydell is the counterpart, the yin to their yang. But there's a lot of great side characters in this movie, whole lot of great side characters. So Patrick, who is your favorite side character in The Devil's Rejects?
I cheated, Damon, because I picked two, the unholy two. That's Danny Trejo and Diamond Dallas Page, the wrestler, play these. I don't even know if you'd call them bounty hunters. I think they're more mercenaries. They're more kind of guns for hire. When you're no longer looking for a lawful way to catch people, you hire these guys. You hire the unholy two. And what I loved about what Rob Zombie did with the unholy two is he made them kind of doofusy. They're still badasses. They still talk tough. They got great dialogue, fantastic shit. But they're also kind of big dopes. But they're big dopes who get the job done. That's just a matter of it, right? He paid good money for them, which was probably $150 to $200 back in 1978. He paid good money for those guys to track them down and get them, and they do the job. But I really love the scene where he goes to their trailer to talk shit with them and to make sure they get this job done right. And just this little moment where he's like, Diamond Dallas Page is like, oh, they're going to think King Kong came down from Skull Island on their asses. You know what I mean? Like he's talking all blustery and shit. And then a few moments later, his girlfriend pops out of the trailer, goes, your mom's on the phone. He goes, hey, she owes me $14. It's just like, I love that shit.
I love those two, and I think what makes them even better is when they attack the Fireflies in the whorehouse, and Danny Trejo slits the one girl's throat, tells Baby to stand up, and she's sitting there naked, and he's got the gun on her, and Otis is in there with Candy, and Diamond Dallas Page shows up, and he scratches the record and turns it off, and you see Otis's face like, oh, fuck. Like he throws his head back, and Candy tries to pull the gun, and he just shoots her dead, and he starts laughing.
Yeah.
That's when you're like, they've met their match. Like they've met their match, and then Otis gets up and he just fucking chucks Otis out of the fucking window. That set the stage for how dire things were for the Fireflies, because up to that point, no one had gotten the better of them. Like, even though they were on the run, no one had gotten the better of them. When Rondo and what's the guy's name?
Oh gosh.
Billy Ray. Is it Billy Ray or is it?
I hate that I didn't. Oh, Billy Ray Snapper.
That's
why I was so bummed I didn't remember Billy Ray Snapper.
When Billy Ray shows up and he just he doesn't, like, there's no intimidation. Like, Otis is like, hey man, he's like, oh yeah, right. And Diamond Dallas Page, who is a big guy, by the way, I met Diamond Dallas Page, he's a big fucker. He just picks him up and just chucks him out a fucking window, and he's just like, badass. Who do you think you're dealing with here, kid? And he just chucks him out a window and throws him like off the porch. Those two characters are great. I love those two. The Unholy too. I just love it. Like, what a great extra character to add in here. So for me, Patrick, I almost went, because it's such a brief moment, I almost very, very briefly went with Robert Traber as Marty Walker, the film critic, because I love.
Oh, I thought you were going to do that. Yeah.
When he talks about Groucho. So I'm gonna, we say side characters. I guess I have to go with him, because I was gonna say Charlie, because Charlie's such a great character. But
Charlie is legitimate. Well, he's a supporting player.
But he is a main character. He is a main character.
Yeah,
so
he
you
is.
Can't. I love, my love of Ken Frey. I met Ken Frey. I love Ken Frey. He's one of my favorite character actors in the world, and especially in horror films. Charlie's probably my favorite other character, but he's a main character. So I got to go with Marty Walker, the film critic, because when he shows up, and you and I exist in film circles. We are film critics. We do this we've done this podcast for 5 years and over 300 episodes. We know guys like Marty Walker, guys who just start spitting facts at you about everything. And this guy's rattling off facts about Groucho Marx and Otto Preminger, and I love it. And this is, you talk about the Tarantino, this is a Tarantino character.
Very.
This is Rob Zombie saying, you know what? I need a character in here that's going to be a film critic. What can I base it after? What characters talk way too much and know way too much? Tarantino characters.
Yeah.
And that's Marty Walker. He shows up and he just starts spouting off. And Sheriff Wydell is like, can somebody shut this fucking guy up? And then he makes the ill-fated mistake of mentioning Elvis Aaron Presley. And Sheriff Wydell's like, don't you ever say a bad word about the king again. But it's like a 2-minute interaction. But that character is so great. And just the annoyance on Sheriff Wydell's face when he starts spouting off all the Hollywood facts. You and I know those guys. You'd be like, oh, have you seen Animal Crackers with Groucho Marx? Oh, let me tell you about Animal Crackers. You're like, oh shit, here we go. That's Marty Walker. That's the film critic.
You say Quentin Tarantino characters. It's Quentin Tarantino.
Yes.
It's basically what it is. It's someone with the deepest of film knowledge, and then the annoyance of the fact that Elvis's death overshadowed Groucho's death. Like, that's a very Tarantino thing to do. Like, we'd all be having parades if it weren't for Elvis, who got in the way of that death. And then that, of course, sets off Chief Wydell. And he's like, get this fucker out of here. And it's not for nothing, by the way, no small parts in this movie. What Walker did was he brought them all the aliases. So he got all these aliases and they're clearly lined up, and that's how they end up tracking them down. That's how they end up finding them. So it's not even not for nothing. It was a situation that did help, but in the spirit of this movie and the spirit of Quentin Tarantino movies, it's like, well, yeah, okay, he's going to give us this thing, but if you're going to give us exposition, hide it in some comedy. And that's exactly what they did here.
Wolf J. Flywheel, that comes from his list, and that's how they tracked down Charlie Altamont, was through the name Wolf J. Flywheel.
That's right. So, I should have came out here and said, and I'm Patrick J. Flywheel.
Yeah, that's a good. I love that character. It's just such a great character. Patrick, next category, favorite Firefly. Now, we do get to meet more than just the main three characters, because we meet Mama, we meet the son who gets killed in the opening onslaught with the cops, and we do get to meet Tiny, who is also part of the family. So it's bigger than just the three people we spend the majority of the film with. So,
and Dr. Satan. And Dr. Satan was also in the unreleased scene.
Yes, in the edited, deleted scenes, you can actually see a scene where Dr. Satan is in a hospital bed, basically in a coma, and he's got his mouth wired shut, and it looks just like the Dr. Satan from House of a Thousand Corpses. And the nurse in that scene is played by Rosario Dawson, of all people, who is an incredible actor. And I watched the deleted scene last night, and I was just like, whoa, as much as I love this movie, I completely forgot about this scene. And Rob Zombie talked about it, and he said, like, he liked the scene, but it just didn't tonally fit with the movie, because Dr. Satan was kind of like this out there, bizarre, almost supernatural-ish character in House of a Thousand Corpses. Like, it just didn't fit, so they had to edit it out. But Rosario Dawson technically was in The Devil's Rejects, which is kind of crazy to think about. But yeah, so Dr. Satan is also technically in this movie.
Yeah. And my favorite Firefly, and honestly, it could have been one of the top three easily. And you know, I'm giving them their due. Believe me, I love them. But I was from back then so haunted by Mama Firefly. And, you know, it's important, I think, to show what these three came from, right? Otis and Baby share her as a mother. And you see where they get their emboldened sort of like devil may care attitude. They get it right from Mama Firefly. She can look Chief Wydell right in the face and say, I don't give a fuck what you think. And I don't care. And here's your dead brother out on a platter. And I loved torturing him. I loved seeing him die. I loved all of that stuff. She gives it as good as any of the other Fireflies did in a fantastic performance. And when she's like going nuts, handcuffed, going, ah! And she's just wailing in there. And it's just like, oh, I know why they're crazy. Because their mama real crazy.
And you got to remember that this wasn't the actor who played Mama Firefly in the original. Karen Black played Mama Firefly in the original, and now Leslie Easterbrook took over in this movie. And I'm not knocking Karen Black's performance by any stretch of the imagination. I thought she did a great job in House of a Thousand Corpses, but Leslie Easterbrook just sells it. She's got it.
So good.
When she taunts Sheriff Wydell, she's like, I need this book right here. I didn't ever have a chance to put these photos in here properly. And she's like, oh, his last name was also Wydell. and she shows him the dead photos of his brother, and she's just like, he was such a nice guy. I felt bad about broing his brains out. It's just, she's fucking with him in the worst situation. And then, of course, when he comes back and stabs her, it's almost like, all right, bitch, like you're gonna fuck with me. I'm gonna fuck with you right back. It's great. Yeah, she's a great character. So I've already mentioned, like, Sid Haig is my favorite performer. I feel like it would be cheap to just name him as my favorite Firefly, because I do love Captain Spaulding. But I think in terms of, like, the most memorable Firefly, the most memorable character in terms of, like, this family, it's Otis.
Yeah.
It's Bill Moseley as Otis, because he is menacing.
Mm-hmm.
So menacing in this movie. And there's just such a vile, evil nature to him, but yet he's just so like devil may care. Like he's just so devil may care. Like he's almost like when he's taking them out to the desert, Adam and Roy, and they're like, "So what now?" And he's like, "Well, that's the end of the road, Hoss." Like, they're like, "What?" And when he taunts Roy, and he's like, "I want you to pray to your God. I want lightning to come down and crash upon my fucking head." And he's like, "Oh, but bless the little bunnies, bless the children, bless the springtime." He's like, oh, I feel it. Oh, it's the gosh almighty Lord. This guy is built to fuck with you, mentally and physically. And Otis is just like, Baby has her part, Spaulding has his part, Tiny has his part, Mother Firefly, but Otis is like the antithesis of all of them. He's like the amalgamation of everything that is evil and vile about the Firefly clan.
He's as evil as it gets. He really is. He's really the one you don't want to cross. He truly is. He plays with his food. And that's the most fucked up part of it. It's like, just kill him already. Just kill them. Like I know what you're going to do. Stop torturing these people. And goes, the torturing is the fun part. Killing them that's when I eat. But right now I want to play. And the fact that no matter where you are in this movie, he does not give a fuck. And those are the scariest guys. The scariest guys are the ones that clearly do not give a fuck. And sometimes you go, well, is it even a horror movie? It's more of a revenge thriller Western. But what's terrifying is if you were standing in the room with that guy, you go, I don't know how I'm getting out of this. You might see a way out with Baby. You might see a way out with Spaulding. You might even see a way out with Mama or Tiny. But you don't see a way out when you're standing across from Otis Firefly. You're like, it's either he's dead or I'm dead. And the odds that I'm going to get over on him, I'm not Diamond Dallas Page, so the odds are low.
And even in his most vulnerable moment, when he's tied to a chair and Sheriff Wydell is torturing him, he brings out the photo of the cheerleader, and he's like, "We found her dead." And he's just like, "Yeah, I shanked her ass for a week after she was dead." He's like, "Yeah, it was great." Like, he's just, even in that moment, Otis is like, "Oh yeah, fuck you!" Like he's defiant. Even in peril, when in theory he's gonna die any moment now, and he's just like, "Oh yeah, she was dead, and I was still banging her." Like he's just so vile and evil, and he doesn't care. I love it. I love that character. Patrick, next category: can we survive this horror film? Now I really hope you're not putting yourself, because you do have the long hair and beard, I hope you're not portraying Otis here.
I've been compared in the past. But him and Charlie Manson, two of the best.
Yeah, I don't know how we fit ourselves into this, although I think we would fit in this world because we did grow up in like similar-ish situations.
We speak the language.
We do speak the language. So are we making it out of this one?
Damon, I'm going to give us a shot this time around, because obviously if we're in Banjo and Sullivan, we're not making it out, because I think you and I would try to attack and we'd probably lose. You know, we're unarmed. They aren't. And in that scenario, we would lose. But I'm going to put us in a different scenario, Damon. And I'm going to say there's the unholy two over here, but there's the unholy two over there. Because honestly, and we would make great characters in a Rob Zombie film because of the way we look. You know, the fact that I'm a foot shorter than you, but we are basically joined at the hip. We would be another version of the unholy two. And apparently we've got a good shot against the Firefly family.
Okay. This really speaks to like we've just spent way too much time talking to each other because that was exactly my answer. Because I'm like, you're Trejo, I'm Diamond Dallas Page, and that you're absolutely right because you've got that swagger, and I'm like, yeah, you could be Rondo. Like you would show up and slit her throat and take out baby, and I would grab Bill Moseley and chuck him through a window. I've met Bill Moseley. I've stood next to Bill Moseley. I am much bigger than Bill Moseley, so I would just grab him. He's a very rail thin guy. I would grab him and chuck him out a window. So yes, and maybe that will be the name of our future podcast, The Unholy 2.
That's not a bad idea.
So I think we would. Because I was trying to think, like, what character would we most be like? And I was like, you know what? It might be Diamond Dallas Page and Danny Trejo.
Yeah, I think I've even gotten Danny Trejo a few times. I don't personally see it, but I've heard it.
Yeah, but I think that is the perfect scenario for you and I to make it out of here and show that we are complete badasses.
It might be the only way we make it out.
The Unholy 2 podcast coming to you soon. Patrick, last category as always, is it scary? If you can't tell by now, at this point in the podcast of us filleting Devil's Rejects for the last 2 hours, this movie has everything. It is terrifying. It is scary. It's brutal. It's disturbing. And I think that's what makes this movie so great on a lot of different levels. I already mentioned earlier about the comedy and everything else, but you can't just say there's not like traditional jump scares. And I think that's what makes Rob Zombie such an effective horror filmmaker is he doesn't just try to get you with the tropey horror moments. Like, okay, there's like legitimately scary moments, like when, Tiny jumps out of nowhere and grabs Sheriff Wydell and snaps his neck. That's not, it's kind of out of nowhere. But everything else, like the vast majority of the scenes are just like, it's just harrowing. Like the torture of Banjo and Sullivan, like the torture of the Firefly family. Like, it's just like uncomfortable feelings. And that is what speaks to really, truly scary, terrifying moments. And this movie's dripping with that.
The best of Rob Zombie is, of course, this movie, but the best of any of his other movies is the same exact thing, which is the brutality that just makes you go, "Oh God, please stop! It's too much. It's too much." You even compared Martyrs earlier. I mean, Martyrs comes up, and you go, "Oh my God, this is too much. You need to stop." That is what The Devil's Rejects is. That's a whole other kind of horror, and it's very much in here. And I think it succeeds where The Last House on the Left failed for me, which at the time was considered one of the scariest movies around. Texas Chainsaw, another movie, unrelenting brutality, things that you're just like, please stop showing this, stop doing this to us. That is what The Devil's Rejects is. That's why it's a Class A horror film, because the brutality of it is horrendous. It is horrific. You want it to stop. You want the brutality to stop. Rob Zombie understands that, and he puts that in here, but then he also gives you those moments where you can laugh, where you can have fun, where you can actually sympathize weirdly with the Firefly family. This movie has it all, Damon. But at the top of that is that brutality and that the idea, and even the name, The Devil's Rejects. Okay, well, what kind of people would have to be the kind of people that the devil would reject? Well, let me show you. It's a perfect movie. It is. It's one of the perfect films. Fantastic. I love when we get to talk about them.
I even love when Rob Zombie was asked, how did you come up with the name? And he's like, I don't really remember. He's like, I just remember I'd had this name in my head, maybe for a song or a book or something. He's like, but it just stuck with me. And when it came time to make this movie, I knew I didn't want to call it House of a Thousand Corpses 2. So I had to come up with the title. And that's where he came up with The Devil's Rejects. And it's iconic. Like, how could you not think about that now? Like, when you think back about movies like The Devil's Rejects, like, it's just such a great title. And you're right. In so many ways, you are Bill Moseley. You are uncomfortable watching this movie. Like, Bill Moseley was not cool shooting the really brutal hotel torture scene. And you shouldn't be comfortable watching that. But that's kind of speaks to why you because you can and you're willing to sit through it to get to the rest of this movie, why it works so well. Because you're like, oh God, this is hard to watch. It's hard to watch. I got to cringe a little bit watching this, close an eye. But then you just like, oh, then I get to see Adam Banjo get his face cut off. I get to see this. I get to see that. It's perfect. And like I said, we've covered perfect films on here before. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Jaws. I'm sure there's others I'm not thinking of right now, but Alien, yes, and Aliens. I think Aliens is also
and Aliens. Yep.
This is another truly, like, there's not a thing I would change about this movie.
I excuse me, Damon, while I go watch this movie after I just finished watching it.
Yeah, I love it. All right, folks, that is our episode for this week. It is the 20th anniversary of The Devil's Rejects. They are re-releasing it in the theaters in early October. So if you haven't seen it in the theater, like myself, I am so excited to go see this in the movie theater and actually see it unfurl on the big screen. So it comes out again in October, so check it out if you can. And obviously it's also available for rent or to buy in the 4K, as you mentioned, is coming out soon, and you and I have already pre-ordered that. So check it out if you're a physical media collector like Patrick and I. The Devil's Rejects. As always, want to say a big thank you to everyone that tunes in the show. Make sure you check us out on all your favorite podcast platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and of course over on our YouTube channel. Just search Rewind of the Living Dead, and also go to our website, rewindofthelivingdead.com, for our podcast, for news, for stories, for other reviews that don't fit on the podcast. Go check that out. And please, please, please check out our Patreon, patreon.com/rewindofthelivingdead. Episodes always go up earlier than we actually release them. This podcast is still free, but if you want early access, you can check them out on our Patreon. You can also check out our Alien Earth recaps and reviews and other things. We did our Final Destination wrap-up show, which was an exclusive for Patreon. We did a Superman review, exclusive for Patreon. So patreon.com/rewindofthelivingdead. It's cheap. Join and support the show. We really appreciate that. And if you got questions, comments, movies you'd like us to review, your opinion on The Devil's Rejects. Do you remember the first time you saw this movie? Hit us up on email anytime, rotlivingdead@gmail.com, or livingdead@gmail.com, or find us on social media. We are on Twitter/X. We are on Facebook, and we are on Instagram. Once again, just search Rewind of the Living Dead, and you will find us over there. And you can also find us on our own personal social media channels. I am at Damon Martin, and you are?
At Director Patrick.
And as always, want to say a big thank you to everyone that tunes in the show. We'll see you next week with another edition of Rewind of the Living Dead. Thanks for tuning in. We will see you then.
Tutti fucking fruity.